Okay, we are live. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay.
I think. Okay, I think we are live.
Okay.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining this month's session. We have two speakers for this month event. So what we are doing is the first event will be by Ravi, who will be speaking on ECMAScript 2021 and 2022. And followed by Ravi's session, we have Github Actions for .NET developers by Swaminathan Vetri. That will be somewhere around 1.5 hours, and Ravi's event will be 1 hour. So Ravi is an UI architect and is an Microsoft MVP. He did a lot of. He has got his own meetup group, which is specifically for Angular. Let me give the floor to Ravi. Ravi, do you mind sharing your screen, Ravi?
Sure. Thank you.
I will flash it and hand this off to you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know once you're able
I
to see my
Yep.
screen.
Yeah, I've added. I will pull myself off the stream so that I'll be there. Just give me a shout if you need anything. Thanks. It's
Sure.
all yours,
Okay.
Ravi.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Swami, for the kind words of introduction. And thank you, everyone, who has joined us on this Saturday afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about what's new in ECMAScript 2021 and 2022. So basically, the set of features that the JavaScript as a language got added to itself to make it more uh, more fit to the enterprise development for which JavaScript has been pretty much in use since last few years. Yeah, so this is about me. So I'm Ravi Kiran, and yeah, I write articles for the sites like .NET Career and SitePoint. And as Swami said, I organize the NJ Hyderabad Meetup group, and I'm a Google developer expert on Angular and Microsoft MVP for the developer technologies. And this is my Twitter handle. So if you want to follow me or if you want to ask me any questions about technologies, then you can feel free to reach me on Twitter. So this is the agenda for the talk today. So we are going to talk about briefly about the evolution of JavaScript, basically how the language got created and how it got evolved over the time. And then we are going to dive into the new features in ES 2021 and ES 2022 with examples. Okay, so starting with the evolution. So probably many of you would know that JavaScript was initially built in 10 days of time by Brandon Egg. Brandon Egg is the father of JavaScript back in 1995. So he was given 10 days to develop a language uh, that will be used by all the major browsers in those days. And the language was back in those days. It was not meant for big usage. It was meant only to write a small amount of script to quickly perform certain actions like certain DOM manipulations or handling events and certain similar things. But as the usage grew, the web community saw a need for standardization of the language. Okay, so because he was given only 10 days, most of the work that he initially did was pretty much brute force, and also a lot of work was based on the inspiration from other languages, mostly from Java, from which the name of the language also derives itself, the JavaScript, right? And then, yeah, so when the web community saw the need for the standardization, they created a standard ECMAScript, and version 1 was of the standard was released in 1997. And then version 2 and 3 were released in the subsequent years. And then ECMAScript 4 actually came up with a lot of new additional features for which JavaScript was not initially meant to contain. Okay, so after uh, a number of rounds of thorough review and consideration, the entire spec was finally abandoned in 2008, saying that ECMAScript 4 will not be implemented by any of the JavaScript vendors. Then in the year 2009, we got ECMAScript 5, And for the first time, they released a minor version 5.1 in 2011. Yeah, they released a minor version because it didn't have anything significant in it. It only had a couple of minor features, so it was announced as ECMAScript 5.1 in 2011. And after that, there was a big gap from 2011 to 2015, and by that time, JavaScript was everywhere. Okay, so back in 2011, it was yeah. Although the language got evolved a lot between 1995 and 2011, it was still used for very small scale use cases like writing some quick scripts on the browser. It was not meant for bigger usage, but as the libraries like jQuery came in and then Knockout.js came in and the front-end frameworks like Angular, Backbone, and all of them have started coming in, and the Node.js came in as the backend framework. The usage of JavaScript was uh, just booming up. People were using it more and more for high scale and enterprise applications because of this wide amount of use cases they saw with JavaScript, right? Because today using JavaScript, you can pretty much build everything. You can build starting from servers to mobile applications, websites, and even background tasks, and probably you could do CI/CD builds also. Possibly someone could be building it at the time as we are talking now, right? So now keeping all of these large scale usages in mind, the ECMAScript community in 2015 brought in a number of features which changed almost the entire face of the JavaScript language, right? So till then it was seen as a language that is function based, object based, and meant for small scale use cases. Suddenly got a very big boom and was ready to fit for the enterprises. So in 2015, the language brought in a number of different language features as well as APIs, in addition to a number of different standards to give a major shift to the language. Okay, and some of the major features in years 2015 include the features like classes, modules, promises, arrow functions, and then destructuring, spread operators, and even of course there are others like the iterators, generators, and even a number of others. Yeah, which I haven't mentioned it. So most of the features that we use today when we write the code of either Angular, React, or Node, or any JavaScript development you consider, and of the features that we use of the language, I can say that pretty much 95% of the features are from ES 2015. Okay, so because that big this release itself was. And from then on, a community called TC39 was formed, and the TC39 community has taken a decision to give an update to the language on every subsequent year. Okay, so from year 2015 onwards, after this big release, every single year, the language has been accepting a number of different proposals. Okay, so I'll show you the repository. Okay, I don't have it here. Yeah, so the ECMAScript community has this repository called proposals. So this is a repository in GitHub, so anyone can view it and anyone can fork it and submit a new proposal to it. So if you have a feature for JavaScript in mind, then you can document it and send it for the review. And it goes through certain process and it goes through different stages of review and consideration. And once a feature reaches the stage 4, then it will be considered for the next release of the language. Okay, so you see the list of features that were released from 2016 onwards in this page, because this is the list, as this page says, it is the finished list of proposals. Okay, so from 2016 onwards, whatever features that were finalized to be included in the language are listed over here. So you can click on any of these links and see those proposals and read the documentation. Okay, and of these features, we are going to focus on learning and playing around with the features of 2021 and 2022. Okay, so So the latest of the release is 2021 was released in the June of this year, and all the features are available in most of the major JavaScript platforms, like most of the browsers and also on Node.js. And ES22 is still a work in progress because this will be announced next year. So, but they have a small set of features that are lined up for the release. Okay, because we see a few features being listed over here as the finished proposal, so we can safely discuss them because they're finalized to be included in the language. And so we are going to discuss both the features of ES 2021 and ES 2022. Yeah, so that's all about the slides. So next part of the presentation is all about demos. So we're going to see the features of ES 2021 and 2022 through some examples. I'm going to switch into my VS Code. So over here in this VS Code, I have a very simple and basic Node.js application which is using Bubble because, as I said, the ES22 features are yeah, though they are finalized, the browser vendors and also Node.js could be still catching up, right? So to be on the safe side, I'm using Bubble for transpilation. Okay, so in this project, I have the Bubble related dependencies and Axios. For one of the examples, I'm using a server call. So for that, I'm using Axios. And in addition to them, I have a bunch of build and execute commands over here, which I'm going to run as we discuss about different features of the language. Okay. Yeah. So we will start with the file ES2021. So the first feature in ES2021 is string.prototype.replace all. Uh, okay, so is this font visible or shall I enlarge it? Swami, I hope this is visible.
Hey Ravi, that's pretty much visible. I mean, once we come into the maximize mode, it is visible. Even now, I'm able to read with little stress, but you can bump it up 10%. Yeah, that sounds good.
This
I'm
looks
able to
good.
see the
Okay.
promise. Yeah, this looks good. Thanks.
Sure, sure. Okay. Yeah. So the very first feature that we're going to discuss is the string.prototype.replace all. Right. So yeah. So the string method that we have now. Yeah. I'm going to open the JavaScript console to write some quick script over here. Okay. Say I write some string, then some string, and we have the replace method. Yeah. So as you see, replace all is available here because Chrome has implemented it. Okay. So if I pass ABCD, uh, so I'm going to replace all the occurrences of ABCD with 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what is going to happen is it is going to take only the first occurrence of ABCD, and that is going to get replaced with 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now with the new proposal of replace all, which we saw that it was added in the browser. So if I just change it from replace to replace all, now you see that all the occurrences of ABCD are replaced with 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is added to the string prototype and it is available everywhere. Okay, so the same thing I have done here. So I'm just going to uncomment this console.log and I'm going to comment out rest of the console logs if any of them are active. So that we'll have focus on one single example at a time. I think that's pretty much. So I'm saving it and now as I said, we have a bunch of commands over here. So I'm going to build and execute the ES2021 file. So I'm going to copy this command of exec2021 and I'll come to my command prompt and I will say npm run my script name. So what this is going to do is this is going to take this file, transpile it, and then run it. Okay, we got some error here. Interfacing without, okay, so looks like the promise example. Okay, let me comment this out. Okay, yeah, we still see the error, but yeah, the more important thing is, yeah, we see this statement, right? So what we have done here is we have taken this string which has two occurrences of apple, okay, two occurrences of apple, and we are replacing all of the occurrences of apple with an orange, okay. So now the string that says that doctors say apples are very good for health and you should eat an apple every day got changed it to the corresponding the same statement, but all the apples are replaced with oranges. Yeah. So the next feature is the promise.any. Yeah. So the as I showed you in the slide, that promise was added as a spec in the ES 2015 or ES6, uh, and over the period of time, promise has been receiving a lot of improvements too, based on the need that people have in the enterprise applications. Okay. So over here we created a set of promises. Okay, and what we are doing here is, yeah, so intentionally I have written promise.all over here to show you the difference between promise.all and promise.any. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are doing promise.all, which means this is going to take this array of promises and it is going to wait for all of their executions, and then we are taking the result and printing it. We are let me also handle the rejection of it. So to make it clear, I'm going to then I'm going to print the errors object. Okay, so right now we see that error occurred, something went wrong. Okay, so one promise got failed, and all has actually written as that error. Now say if I change one of the other response also to reject, now let's see what is going to happen. Yeah, now we see that error occurred value 100. Okay, so which means, as you see, this promises array over here has three promises, but promises.all is actually getting the very first error that occurred. Okay, so it is ignoring any other errors that have happened to rest of the promises, right? Yeah, so all these three promises, because we got the error here, I think the execution got stopped over here, and it actually didn't care about the error written by the third promise. Okay, so now if I change this to any, let's see how it is going to behave. Yeah. So now what it did was, what any means is when any of these promises that we pass as input to it passes, then it will give you the result of it. Okay. So now that's the difference between all and any. All will pass only when all the promises are resolved. Okay, it gets rejected as soon as the very first promise gets rejected, or as soon as one of the promises, or as early as possible. So if something gets rejected, the promises dot all also gets rejected. But promise dot any, what it stands for is, if any of these three promises is resolved, then the entire promise is resolved. Now let us look at another case where all the three promises are going to fail. So for that I have another example over here. I'm going to uncomment it now. Okay, so as you see here in the promise two, also I have three different promises, and I'm rejecting all of these three promises with three different values. Okay, and I'm handling it using promise.any, and I'm going to run this file now after making the change. Yeah. So now as you see, it came to the error block and it printed the errors, error message, and the error name. Okay. So in the errors, actually, it had all the three errors. Okay. So the first promise returns the message with the number 10, and the second promise returns an error with the object with the value 100, and the third promise gets rejected with a string. Okay, so we see all the three different error objects got printed over here in an array, and yeah, so then we saw the message saying that all the promises were rejected, and finally the name says aggregate error. Okay, so the aggregate error here is a new type that got introduced in ES 2021 to support this kind of error. Okay, so if you're writing this code using TypeScript, you can write it something like this. You can say error colon aggregate error. Okay, so even you can even, yeah, because this is not TypeScript, yeah, it is showing these squigglies below the type declarations. I'm just going to undo it. Okay, yeah, of course, yeah. As with any promises, you can use the promise.any also with the async and await keywords. Okay, so yeah, so that's also possible. So let me comment this out. Yeah, the third feature is numeric separator. So now, like, say you are building some application and somewhere you have the need for assigning a maybe a constant, say for example, okay, constant, sorry, value is equal to 1 followed by some zeros you entered. Okay, so now when you look at it for the first time, you just think that it is 1 followed by some zeros, but if you really want to understand what this values is, like say for example in the terms of millions or billions, or in the terms of lakhs or crores, the very first thing you do is you start counting the zeros from the rightmost corner, right? So this is very difficult. This is not, yeah, as I said, this is not readable on the first look itself. Okay, so you have to do the painful job of counting all the zeros one by one in order to understand what this number is. Or while writing code, you have to take the due diligence and maybe write a comment saying, yeah, let me just count it. It is thousand. It's up to here. It is million, and yeah, so this is 100 billions. Yeah, so if I write this comment saying that it is 100 billions, then it is clear, right? But the number as it is not readable or understandable. So with the numeric separators, we can make it more readable. Okay, so you can use the underscore as the numeric separator. So if I want to make it very clear that it is 100 billions, what I need to do is I need to keep on skipping three zeros from the right and keep on adding an underscore. Okay, so now as soon as someone looks at it, okay, thousands, millions, billions, okay, this is 100 billions. As soon as someone looks at it, it is very, very clear, right? And yeah, so it is not necessary that you have to put the underscores only after every three numbers. You can put it even after two numbers. Like if you are from India and you understand in the terms of lakhs and crores, then we can make it something like this. Okay, then it makes more sense for us. Okay, and when we print this number, you will not see any difference. Okay, so you will still see, you will just get the value. Yeah, so when you actually use it, it will not be used as a string, because yeah, some of you may think that because we have underscores, JavaScript may treat this as a string. No, this is not going to be treated as a string. This is going to be treated as a number, and whenever you attempt to use this value, this will be used as a number only. Okay, and yeah, and the syntax is not specific to only the only the left side of the decimal point. It can be applied on the right side of the decimal point too. Okay, so like here I have this big number with five digits on the right side of the decimal. So here if I want to add some meaning to it, then yeah, so based on the understanding of my team, I can add some underscores. Okay, so now this will also take the corresponding pure numeric value. And this can be applied to binary, octal, and hexadecimal numbers too. Okay, I think I have. Okay, let me make it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can write a binary number like this too. So this will also be taken. Similarly, for an octal number, okay, this is actually not an octal number. Let me make it 4, and I make it an octal number if I, yeah, this is octal. And for the hexadecimal numbers, yeah, I'm going to replace some of these numbers with the hexadecimal characters, and I'm going to declare it as a hexadecimal number. Then it is going to take it with the numeric separators. Okay, so if I, okay, so show you that all of these are actually working, I'm going to quickly print them. I'm going to say number, binary number, octal number, and hexadecimal number. Yeah, so we got all the values printed and there are no errors, which means JavaScript is actually understanding the meaning of the separators and it is able to treat the numbers accordingly. So that's about the numeric separators. Now the next feature is the logical assignment operators. Okay, so there are 3 different logical assignment operators that got introduced in ES 2021. The first one is called or equals. Okay, so say, yeah, so we have this variable called let a over here. Okay, and say you are writing a big program or a big function, and somewhere in the middle of your logic, you want to check if the value a has a, sorry, if the variable a has a value, and only if it doesn't have a value, you want to assign a value of 20 to it, right? So then what you can do is you can either, sorry, you can either say if a and say a is equal to 20, you can write it like this. Or if you like the shorthand syntaxes, then what you do is a is equal to a or 20. Right? This is also possible. Okay, if a has a value, then it will take that value. Otherwise, it will assign the value of 20 to it. Okay? So now the same thing has been shortened even further, and now you can avoid this a from here, and you can say a or is equal to 20. Okay, so this is now similar to the numeric plus operator that we use today, right? So today we can write something like this, right? A plus is equal to 100, which actually means a is equal to a plus 100. Now this feature got inspired from the yeah, so the new or equals got inspired from this assignment, yeah, this addition assignment operator, and now the same thing has been implemented this way. Okay, so if I, yeah, I'm going to delete all of the additional code that I wrote. I'm going to run it. You should see the value 20 now. So right now the value is 20. Now say I assign some value to a, I assign the value 10. Now, now the uh, now the value of a should not be overridden with 20. It should remain 10, right? Yeah. So now this is 10 because the value was there. It didn't get overridden. But the same thing or a similar operator exists for on and also. Okay. So it is called and equals. So so now this is similar to b is equal to b and 30. Okay, which means only if b has a value, the value 30 is going to get assigned to it. Otherwise, this will not be assigned, right? Yeah. So right now we have the variable b declared, and we have initially assigned it with the value of 1, and then we are taking the and operator show. So the value should get overridden here. So let's check if it works. Yeah, so it worked and the value got overridden. But if I remove the assignment, now it should remain undefined. Yeah, so now because I removed the assignment and the AND operator returned a false, written the boolean value of false. So now the B is not assigned with 30. The next operator is QQ equals, it is called QQ equals. Okay, so in this one what we can do is like, yeah, so sometimes we check whether a property exists or not before setting a value, right? So you can do that. And the syntax remains similar to the two operators we discussed before. So instead of writing a ternary, you can actually bring it down and you can just say %city double question mark is equal to Hyderabad. That means if the city exists and if it doesn't have a value, it will assign the value of Hyderabad to the city. Okay, so as you see, it got the value assigned from the right side. Now, yeah, so the positive side or the good thing about these three operators is, say you are writing a function on the right side. Okay, so I have some, yeah, so I'm just going to write some code which is obviously not going to work on, it is only for explanation. So say if I have the same statement over here, and here instead of assigning a hardcode value, if I say, uh, yeah, get city, probably the function get city exists somewhere, and I'm going to call it to assign the value of city. Okay, then what's going to happen is if the city has a value already assigned, then the get city function will not be called at all. Okay, so that is true for the other operators too. So if the left hand expression has a value and it doesn't require the right hand operator to get executed, then the right hand operator will not even get called. Okay, so that means if you have a function getting called over here, then that function will not be called at all. Implemented. And then there are two of the advanced features. So these are used for garbage collection, and because we don't have to deal with the garbage collection every single day, because it's a pretty low-level thing and it has to be done by the language, or unless you are writing any big platforms like Node.js, you don't have to actually worry about garbage collectors. So these features are very niche for the use case as far as the use cases are considered. Okay, so that's why even like, yeah, so even though I have these examples over here, these examples actually don't uh, or they fail to give you the full picture of these features. So anyways, let me just explain you quickly. So the first feature is weak refs. Okay, so what weak refs are is when you create an object something like this, object is equal to a colon 20. Okay, so when you're writing a statement like this, you're actually doing a two-step process. One is you are creating an object over here, and then you are creating a reference. Okay, so here obj is the reference, and the value that is sent to this reference is the actual object, right? So now this object is going to be created only once, and this object can have any number of references. Like now I can again create obj1 is equal to obj, right? Now what is going to happen is for the same object a colon 20, I am creating one more reference called obj1. Okay, so now this object will have some allocated memory in the heap of your RAM, and all of these references are actually stored in the stack. And the way the JavaScript's garbage collector works is it will garbage collect a particular object only when there are no active references for it in the code. Okay, so it keeps on checking for the active references of all the objects whenever the garbage collector runs. And if you ask me when the garbage collector will run, then that is an implementation detail and it is not known to anyone, right? So probably it depends on JavaScript vendors or the JavaScript platforms that we are using. So maybe every browser implements the garbage collector differently, and they will have their own different levels of like triggering points or invocation points of the garbage collector, right? So we cannot guarantee when this object is going to be garbage collected, even when there are no references pointing to it. Okay, so even if we Uh, so basically, when you set obj is equal to undefined and obj1 is equal to undefined, only then we can say that this particular object is free of any references. Sorry. Yeah, so only then we can say that the object is free of any references and then it can be garbage collected. But even in that case, we don't know when this is going to be garbage collected because the implementation can be different from platform to platform, right? So now, so now this way when we are creating the objects, these references are called strong references, okay? Which means they are going to very strongly hold the object to themselves, okay? So now, in contrast to that, the weak refs are created in such a way that they will not hold a strong reference to the objects, okay? So yeah, so this is the way to create a weak reference. So you can say new weak ref and you can pass an object to it. Okay, so now this weak reference is going to hold this object. So now, as I said, this is a weak reference. This is going to hold a dotted line kind of relationship with the object. Okay, so even if the WR is not set to undefined or null in your code, JavaScript garbage collector may garbage collect this object and WR might not hold the value anymore once the garbage is collected. Okay, but yeah, but as I said, it is not guaranteed when this value is going to get garbage collected. So that's why when you are using this, like when you have to use the feature like weakref, you have to be very careful. Okay, so if you want to do some more predictive actions or more predictive usage, then it is better to avoid weakrefs. Okay, because you could be using that object somewhere, but before that it could have been garbage collected. You won't know about it, right? Yeah, and the way to get the object from the weak references, you can call dref, and dref will give you the value. Okay, so I'm just going to comment this and run the piece of code to just show you that the weak reference has the value. Okay, yeah, so we got this printed now. Let me comment on the previous one. Now, the last feature in ES 2021 is the finalization registry. Yeah, so the finalization registry is something that is similar to destructor in the other programming languages. Okay, but the destructor is generally written inside a class, but the finalization registry is specific to the objects. Okay, because in JavaScript you can create the objects even without the classes. So that's why the finalization registry is created in such a way that it can be hooked up to any object. It need not be a class-based one. Okay. So the finalization registry, what it will do is it will help you to clear up anything when an object is getting garbage collected, right? So say for example over here, what I have done is, yeah, I have created a finalization registry. So this is the syntax to create a finalization registry. Okay, it accepts a callback, and the callback takes a value which has to be cleared up. And yeah, so inside the callback, you actually write the logic to clean up this object. And then you have to register the object and basically, yeah, so here WR is the target object. Okay, yeah, let me write it as a comment here, maybe, or I'll open the MDN reference. Yeah, I have the MDN opened over here. So I'll go to the foundation registry constructor, or yeah, in the register we have the object and then some value, right? So the object is the target over here. Okay, so this is the object so what this means is when this object is getting garbage collected, I want to run some finalization logic on this object. Okay, so that's when this callback will get called and this is going to be cleared off. And the finalization registry can be used with any object, so it doesn't mean you need to use it only with the weak references. Although I'm using it because I have a weak reference over here. So even if you have an object like this, you can say fr dot register obj comma your object to be released. Okay. So you can call it using any object. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the features of ES6. Sorry, ES 2021. Now I'm going to close this file and open the other file, ES 2022. Okay. Now compared to ES 2021, ES 2022 has more number of features. Okay, so we're going to discuss all of them. The first one is accessible object dot prototype dot has own property. Okay, so let me actually run some of these in the browser because this will be really quick if I run it on the browser. Okay, so I will copy this code and I have established here, so I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so at first what I'm doing is, yeah, I'm creating an object int and I'm checking if this object has a property called name in it. I'm using the has on property method. And of course it is returning true because it has a property name. Okay. So now there are some pitfalls for this method. Now the pitfalls are this property or this method name is not secure, so anyone can override this property and assign a custom function or a custom value to it, right? Like I created this object 2 over here. Okay, so in this object 2, if I call the has-on property method, then it threw an error saying that has-on property is not a function because I created a Boolean property using this property name and assigned a value of false to it. It is not a function that can be called anymore, right? So now the right way in which I can overcome this is I need to use object.prototype.has-on property. Okay, yeah, so let me give an enter and I'll do a console log of this. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this is actually false. Yeah. Let me remove this comment. That's misleading. Yeah. So now what I have done is because has-on property has been overridden in the object obj2, I'm actually calling the one that is defined in the object directly. Okay. So I'm saying object.prototype has-on property, and I'm passing the value to it. Yeah, so dot call, and then I'm passing the object and the property name. Okay, so this is technically similar to the calling this one, but instead of calling the overridden property or the overridden method, we are actually calling the one from the object dot prototype, right? Yeah, so the same feature, like if you see it in the case of directly created objects like the using the object create, actually they will not work. Okay, because here the property name is actually inherited from the other object and it is not directly existing on obj3, right? So in all these cases, what we need to do is here again we need to check it using prototype.hasOn property and then it will give you true. Okay, so now because we are doing a lot of work here, like we are taking the pain to go inside the property and then take the actual method and then call it using the dot call. In order to avoid all of this, now in the ES22, the proposal has been added to include object.hasOwn. Okay, yeah, so now it is showing the squiggly here because the TypeScript is not recognizing the hasOwn, but actually the browser has it, so that's why it was able to execute and give us the result. Okay. So now, even if I I can take the obj2 and I can do the same thing for obj2 to obj2, and yeah. So now, what I'm doing here is the same thing of what I've done here. Okay, so instead of using prototype, now we are calling object.hasOwn, and we are passing the object with the property name, and it is giving us either true or false, right? Yeah, so now object.hasOwn is now the more accessible way of checking whether the property exists or not on a given object. Okay. Yeah. So the other examples are also similar. Like, yeah. So I'll give you the snippets and you can try them on your own. Yeah. So the next feature is dot at. Yeah, so in the arrays, like whenever you access some index using array, we need to pass only the positive indexes, right? So you can pass either 0 or any index that is less than the length of the array, but you cannot pass the negative indexes, right? So passing of the negative indexes actually exists in the other languages like yeah, that it exists in Python and also maybe in .NET also it exists. But it cannot be added to JavaScript because the array accessor that we have in JavaScript is not meant only for the arrays. We are using like yeah. So here in this object we have the property name, right? So I can write something like obj6 of name, right? So as you see, we are using the same array accessor over here, but now we are using it on an object, right? So because this is allowed, the negative index cannot be supported natively by the language. Okay, so that's why now the dot at method got added. It's actually the, you can say, array dot prototype dot at. It actually need not be array alone. It can be a string or typed array, basically any collection type. Okay, yeah, I've written array dot prototype only to make it a bit clear. So right now we have this array with the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. Now say I want to find the second element from the end of the array. So then for that what I need to do is I need to take the length of the array and then subtract the number 2 and then take the value, right? Then I'll get the number 4, right? So now in order to avoid this difficulty, now we have array.at. So to the array.at you can simply pass the negative index and it will give you the value. Yeah, so this feature is not implemented on many of the browsers yet, but the proposal link that I have here, okay, it's open it in ads. Let me copy it and open it on Chrome. Yeah, the proposal page has a polyfill over here, which is actually working in most of the cases. So if you want to play around with the add function, then you can copy this snippet from here and paste it on your browser and play with it. Okay. Now, yeah, Node.js has it implemented natively. Okay, and to make it clear to you, yeah, let's just see the Node.js version I'm using. Yeah, I'm using the 16.11.0, which is the latest version of Node.js. Yeah, I installed it only a couple days ago. So on the latest version of Node.js, all these features, whatever I'm showing in the console over here, are available. Okay, so let me, yeah, now because I'm running, yeah, I want to run ES2022. I'm changing the command to npm run exec 2022. This is going to compile the code and run it. Okay, I think I have a lot of uncommented code over there, so that's why we see all those results. Okay, yeah, let me just highlight the result over here. Okay, so when we said array dotted of -2, it actually printed 4. Now 4 is the number that is second last from the end, right? And say if I change this index to -3, now it should print me 3, right? So if I run this code again we are going to see a big output, but yeah, just bear with me. Yeah, we see array dotted. Okay, I didn't change the string of it, so we see -2, but the value is correct, right? We got the value 3. Yeah. So the next feature is the regex-free match indices. Yeah. So to the existing feature of regular expressions in JavaScript, now we got this flag D added in the end. Okay. So now the D stands for index. Okay. So what this is going to do is, if you have the flag D added to the end of your regex, then the matches object that you're going to get as the result of like either so there are multiple ways of executing irregular expressions in JavaScript, right? So you can either say regex dot exec, or you can say string dot prototype dot match. Okay, so this function also exists, which takes a regex and it does the matching against the source string. Okay, and we also have the match all. Okay, so you can use this with any of these three regex based functions. Okay, so here I have a simple regex creator. Okay, it checks for the occurrence of the text sample inside a source string, and what I'm saying is I'm passing the flag d to it. So I'm asking the regex to provide me the details of all the indices that you find inside my source array. Okay, so I run the regex, and let me comment out the other two console logs to have a clear result in the console. Okay, so we are executing the regex and then we are printing the matches. Let me run it in the browser because there we will have the ability to inspect and see more details of these objects. Okay, so it will be more friendly to learn it there. Okay, yeah, I can. Okay, so these examples actually exist in my browser because I was trying them before. So I'm going to uncomment out only the first part of the snippet. Okay, so now when I got the matches and I printed matches.indices, I actually got an array, and the array has two entries. Okay, so these entries actually contain the start and end indices. Okay, so as you see, there are two entries and both are same. So what these entries mean is the very first entry in this array means the entire substring of the array in which the match was found, and the corresponding entries actually mean the individual entries where the match has been found. Okay, so yeah, because there was only one match, we got only one. Here if there are multiple matches, you will get multiple of these. Yeah, we will see this in the next example. So if I run the next example in which we are creating another regex, it is slightly different. Okay, yeah, and it found three different matches. Okay, because it has we are matching for either T or he's, right? So that's why I got three matches, and if I print matches to, sorry, I'll say matches to dot indices, then we got an array with three entries over here, and upon inspecting them, what we see here is the first one contains 0 to 4 because 0 to 4, yeah, so this is spans from 0th index to 4th index. So that's why we got the entire thing. And the second one is for the first match. So the first match is the single letter T, which is from 0th index to first index. And then the third entry in the array is the second match. So the second match is the substring HIS, okay, which is spanning from the index 1 till index 4. Okay, so that's why we got these three different arrays got printed as part of the indices. Now it's also possible to define groups inside the regex, and you will get the details of the groups. Okay, yeah, so now here what we have done is we have slightly improved the very first regex that we have created. Okay, so we have defined two groups here, group 1 and group 2. Yeah, just make it bigger. So group 1 contains the subtext sample 1, and group 2 contains the subtext sample 2. Okay, so now this regex is going to get executed against the string, and the results are going to get grouped. Okay, so if you see the response here, it's actually not any different, but if you see it in the full browser console, yeah, so here we see the same results that we saw in the previous examples. Okay, so we see the complete match and the first match and the second match, and in addition it has this groups populated. Okay, and also if you expand the indices, under indices also we have groups. Okay, we have group 1 and group 2, and then it shows basically the indices between which the group 1 string was matched and the indices between the which the group 2 string was matched. Okay, so because the text sample is present between 10 and 16, we got 10 and 16 as the one for the group 1, and the text is present between 17 and 21, so those indices got printed as the group 2. Yeah, so that's about the regex match indices. Yeah, now, yeah, we have last two features. Yeah, so these two are somewhat bigger features. Yeah, we have 5 more minutes. Yeah. So the first feature is so now in ES22 uh, a lot of changes have been proposed to the classes. Okay, so in the classes now we have the fields, private fields, and private methods allowed. Okay, because till the current version of ECMAScript we don't have a way to create private fields, right? So anything that you write inside the class becomes public, and even if you don't have the intention to expose those values to the users, they are exposed implicitly by the language itself, and anyone can anyone can see those values or use those values and even tamper with them by using the simple browser's console or the inspect tools, or even someone can write some automated script and run it against against your site and steal any private data that you have inside your JavaScript objects, right? So that's why the private fields are introduced, and the private fields can be declared using a hash symbol. Okay, so the hash or pound symbol has to be prefixed with the name of the field. Okay, so once it is prefixed, it means it is private to the class and it cannot be used outside through any means. Okay, so basically, the way we have different syntaxes for using any objects from the sorry, any properties from the object, right? Like you can say obj dot prop name or obj of prop name. Sorry, obj of prop name. Okay, so uh, yeah, so this is particularly uh, yeah. So this feature has to be paid more attention by the TypeScript developers, okay? Because if you are using TypeScript, you know that in the TypeScript classes you could say that something is private, okay? But even if you declare some field or method as a private in your TypeScript class, it's actually public technically, okay? Because there is nothing called private for the JavaScript classes. So the same private properties which you declared as private in the TypeScript classes can be inspected using this syntax. Okay, so someone can just say that your property is of any type and simply use the prop name inside the strings using the array accessor and try to access that value and it will work, right? But this will not work for the private field. So if it is a private field and if you try to do this, then you will get an error for this. And one more good thing that got added in the yes, yeah, so that is proposed to get added in ES22 is yes 2022 is the declaration of the fields. Okay, so yeah, so sorry for not yeah for forgetting this feature initially. So now this code will work even if I remove these declarations, right? Because the JavaScript classes, the way they work is if you have this dot something, then the field gets created over there automatically on the fly, and the field will get the corresponding value assigned to it, right? So now these are all valid fields, even if I haven't declared them, right? So now this field declaration actually brings in a implicit documented or implicit, or it has the implicit readability to your classes. Okay, so say for example, you wrote this class today, and tomorrow you came back and you forgot what all fields you have used in this class, then at the first look of the class itself, you can find out what all fields you have used in the class. Okay, or even if you like, if one of your team members is using your code, if someone is reviewing your code to merge the pull request, then they can simply see this class and they can directly understand that you have declared these three fields and you are going to use them inside this class. Okay. Yeah, so similarly, we have private methods also. Okay, so any methods can also be prefixed with hash if you think that the logic of this method has to be kept secret to the class and it should not be exposed to the outside world. Then you can prefix that method also with a hash, and that will get secured and sealed within the class, and it cannot be used from outside the class. And the way to use these objects inside the class is, or to use these fields inside the class is the same syntax. Using this keyword, you can use them. Okay, so you can say this dot hash obj, this dot hash first name, and they all will be usable this way, right? Yep. So let me quickly run this sample to show you what the result is. Yeah, so I have print details being called over here, right? So print details, yeah. So I'm creating an object with the first name and last name is Ram Kumar, and I'm passing some random data as the DOB, and I'm going to call the print details. So we've already run out of time. So Swami, I just need 5 more minutes to finish rest of the content. Yeah. So yeah. So as you see, the value got printed over here. Okay. So because the full name property is private to the method, this was accessible inside the class, and we could use it, right? Yeah, say I see if I try to access the private field somewhere, then as I say that we will get an error. So let's see if we really get the error. Yeah, so we see some error here, right? So it is saying, um, yeah, so it is saying invalid private field resolution. Okay, so bubble 3 on error saying that it has invalid private field resolution, so it was not able to convert this code from ES2022 to the browser readable code or Node.js readable code because we tried to access a private field inside our code. Comment out all of this. Now the next feature is once again about the classes, and this is about the static features that are added to the classes. Okay, so I think earlier we had static public functions, but we didn't have static fields, and yeah, because we didn't have the feature of private at all, we didn't have anything called static private, right? So now all of those are possible. So right now you have static public fields, static private fields, static private methods, and also the static blocks. Okay, so now, yeah, maybe some of you don't know, so I'll just give a quick review of the static. So static is something which is not instance specific; it is specific to the class itself. Okay, so yeah, as most of you would be aware that in JavaScript everything is an object, whether you create a class or whether you create a function, everything is treated as an object in JavaScript, right? So even for the object that gets created for the class, when the class gets loaded into the memory for the first time, can have some references, and it can have some fields and methods, right? So now using the static method, what you can do is you can create the static private fields using the same hash symbol as the prefix of the variable name, and you can even create static methods. Okay, like I created the static is created method over here, and you can even create static blocks. Okay, yeah, I don't have a static block over here. Yeah, let me quickly write one. static, and I can simply set a couple of curly braces over here, and yeah, what I'll do is I'm going to set the value of max here. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this dot hash max here is, say for example, this is 1990. Okay, so it means whatever the person object I'm going to create using this static person class, yeah, so that person has to have a date of birth of 1990, or yeah, this is max, so 1990 or before. Okay, so I cannot have the DOB of 1991 or later, right? Yeah, so although I wrote a simple assignment over here, you can do basically anything over here. Like if you want to perform some calculation and then assign a value, you can do that. Okay, and the static block actually gets called when the class is referenced for the first time, which means when the class is either instantiated or class dot some other private method or private field is invoked for the first time. That is when the class is loaded into the memory and the static block gets executed. Okay, and yeah, so this will get executed only once in the lifetime of the application. So this cannot be executed multiple times. Okay, and the static methods and the static fields can be accessed outside the class using the class name. Okay, because I said initially that these are class specific and not instance specific. So you need not create an instance saying new static person and then you have to call those methods. No, you don't need to do that. You can directly see the class name dot, and then you can directly invoke either the property or the method. Okay, yeah, so let me quickly run this to show you what is the output. I hope I commented on the previous one. Yes. Okay, looks like the static. Okay, yeah, I haven't installed the required plugin for this one, so that's why it is complaining. Okay, so yeah, so I'm missing some bubble setup steps, so that's why this is not working. Okay, so so in order to try this, like you can try this either using TypeScript, or if you are doing it using Bubble, then you have to install the plugin and enable it. Yeah, so because we are running out of time, I'm not going to do it, but I'll provide it in the code base. So anyway, yeah, let me comment this out so that we will have rest of it working. Okay, so I'll just assign it to 1990 over here in static way. Okay, so it was able to execute it, and okay, why did we not get the value? Okay, it printed the count actually. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is working, and yeah, maybe I can print the object so that we will see what this object has inside it. Okay, maybe I'm doing some mistake.
Ravi?
Yes.
Yeah. You need some more time, or
Yeah, just 5 more minutes. Yeah, just one last feature and we'll be done.
okay? You're on mute, Swaminathan.
Yes. Now isn't talking
Yeah,
anything. Yeah, it's okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Ravi.
okay.
yeah, sorry. Just 5 more minutes and we're done. Yeah.
No problem.
No problem.
Yeah, so that's about this feature. Yeah, let me comment out this code and it's yeah. So the next feature is the ergonomic branch checks. Okay, so when you use any private, basically any private property inside the class, the way we generally check it is using, like you can say, if this dot hash bar, right? We check it this way, but this way using it this way has its own pitfalls. Like if bar actually is existing, but if it has a value of undefined or null assigned to it, then even then this if will return you false, okay, which is not the desired one, right? So that's why like this proposal is to enable the checking of the property name using the in keyword. Okay, so you can say hash bar in this. Okay, so this way you can check if the property exists or not. Okay, yeah, so yeah, the same example I intended to actually change it here. So if it is yeah, so right now to check if this property exists, it is using the dot operator, which is actually not correct. So here also I can say hash bar in obj. Okay, yeah, so it is showing the squigglies again because VS Code is actually not able to find out, but it is actually understandable by Babel. Okay, yeah, so I'll just quickly execute it. Yeah, so now, yeah, so this got executed, and yeah, I actually didn't do any console.log over here, so that's why we didn't see the result. Yeah, but we understand that Babel is able to understand this syntax and it is able to transpile it, right? Right, yeah, and the one last feature that I have here is the top level weight. Okay, so so in JavaScript right now, you cannot write any asynchronous operations at the top level. Okay, so if you have to write it at the top level of a module, then you'll have to either wrap it inside a self-invoking function, or you will have to use a promise and you have to expose that promise in the exports of the module, or do some workaround. Okay, but all those methods are not so efficient because they have their own pitfalls, and you'll not be able to predictably get the value from the asynchronous operation once it is completed. Okay, so that's why the top level await is the feature that got introduced or that got proposed as part of AS2222. Okay, so what this feature proposes is you can use await at the top level of any proper module. Okay, and yeah, so here the request.js is the module that is using the await at the top level, and in the module that I'm in which I'm using it, right? So this module is actually importing this request module, right? So now the controller is going to wait here. Um, the controller is going to wait here till the operation is completed in the request.js file, and it has the resulting object exported. Okay, so none of the statements of the top level await.js will get executed unless request.js is completed over here. Okay, yeah, so for this I'm using Actions to make a call to the simple GitHub API, and whatever response I'm getting from here, I'm taking the description and I'm exporting that from this module. Okay, so I have a few console.logs over here to show the sequence of execution. Okay, so I'll quickly run this. I'll say not node. I have a npm run twa. Okay, so right now, yeah, you see here, right? So we see received response first. So now received response is printed over here, and then inside top level await, which is here. Okay, so which means this console.log got executed after the asynchronous operation inside the result.js file got executed, and we have the result in our hand. Okay, and then finally we see the result. Okay, so this was the result we got from the GitHub API. We extracted it and we printed it. Yeah, so that's all the features. Or that's all the content I had to cover for today. So if you have any questions, then yeah, because you don't have time, so keep posting them in the chat and I'll take them and answer. And of course, feel free to connect me on Twitter. This is my handle, and post many questions. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, Swami.
Ravi, it was really wonderful, and I think Swaminathan will also agree to this one. Previously, C# developers, we used to be very scared to work with JavaScript or TypeScript. Now that it has
Yeah.
become very close to C#, now this is
Yes.
also, we don't feel scared now. Okay, now
Right.
we
Right.
see, what do you say, Swaminathan, on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of these features are I can relate to what is available in .NET or any other high-level languages, right? Or strongly typed
Yes.
language for that matter. Yeah, the evolution is good. I think it was a really a good refreshing session for me. It's been quite some time since I lost touch with JavaScript, and good to see that it's I'm still able to catch up with them, looking at these features.
Okay. Good.
Seriously,
Good one, good one,
this were
Ravi.
pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was pretty good, Swaminathan. And also, recently I am working on Angular project, but I see a lot of powerful things where
yeah,
API is returning one of the strongly typed interface, and
correct.
I want to modify on top of that. I either extend with another interface or do an any of and
Hmm.
pass an interface and more elements to that and play with it. It's pretty
Right.
powerful. This one, seriously powerful. One more
Yes.
thing is, once if we learn this TypeScript or JavaScript, so there are host number of opportunities. Like we can play with
Right.
Node.js, React, Vue.js, Angular, or next Nest.js. I mean, the
Yeah.
list
There are a
goes
lot
on
of.
and on.
Yeah, yeah,
Electron.
not yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
not just this. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, you can build desktop applications, mobile
yeah.
applications, servers, basically anything you say, you can do it using JavaScript.
Correct. Yeah.
Seriously.
So back then, few years back when I used to also work in Java, I keep telling this in all my sessions. Right? Every day you wake up to a new JavaScript framework, right?
Right, right.
There are so many frameworks and so many libraries keep coming out. And looking at these features getting enriched, I think the system, the ecosystem is going to be even better and bigger only,
Yes,
right?
Sure.
yes.
Thanks so much, Ravi. I'll give the floor to our next speaker, Swaminathan.
Sure.
Welcome,
Sure.
Swaminathan. It's really wonderful, Ravi. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward for Swaminathan's session because I myself want to learn GitHub Actions. I have zero knowledge on that, so I'll be staying in the stream.
I
Thanks.
appreciate your humbleness, Swami.
That's truth. That's truth. uh,
All
uh,
right then.
yeah, it's all
Should we get
yours.
started or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Hey
You
guys, good
introduce yourself.
afternoon. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ravi. That was definitely a very informative session, and I hope I'll be able to live up to the kickstart what you've given.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. All right, guys. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining on this meetup. I know it takes a lot of efforts to stay awake in a Saturday afternoon, and that too, and then coming and attending attending a technical session. So thank you so much. You guys are the motivation for us to do all of these events on a monthly basis, on a regular basis, right? So with that, yeah, let's quickly get started. So my session is going to be on GitHub Actions. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with GitHub Actions. You can keep posting your comments. I'll keep a watch on this in my other monitor here. All right. So I'm focusing mostly on Git. I'll be talking about GitHub Actions and then how we can use GitHub Actions to build and deploy your .NET applications. Right? But there are more to GitHub Actions, which is very much possible there. All right. So before I go further, a quick intro about myself. So my name is Swaminathan Vetri is my full name. You can call me Swami. I am a Swami with I. I know there is other Swami who is Swami with Y. So I work as an architect at Maersk in Bangalore, and I'm a Microsoft MVP and developer technologies for almost 6 years now. And I'm also a member of .NET Foundation, and those are my social handles. You can feel free to follow me in either Twitter or GitHub, or that's my blog. So I'm nothinvery.in, and I also started a YouTube channel, which is kind of getting dormant. I need to revive it, but you can still subscribe then. And yeah, those are my other interests: photography, blogging, and traveling. And recently, I also started a bit of home automation with all these smart kits, smart tools, smart plugs, smart bulbs, and Google Assistant and things like that. Yeah, that's my interests. All right, so it's a pretty sleek agenda. So we'll just get a basic
You're
understanding of.
making you're making life tough. Someone can't sneak you to your home. You're
The
making their
security
lives.
system is the next one. For now, it's
Okay.
more of fun things like changing the
Okay.
light bulb's color for my kid to enjoy.
Okay. Cool then.
Yeah, security is the next stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at. Yeah. Right. All right. So getting into the agenda. So it's we'll understand what are the basics of GitHub Actions, and then why we need to learn GitHub Actions, and then what are some of the core concepts you need to be aware of when you're working with GitHub Actions, and then it's going to be mostly on a demo basis. All right. So first thing, what are GitHub Actions, right? So GitHub Actions is more of an workflow automation. You can automate anything. Right? When I say anything, what are the things you can automate, right? So most likely, all of you would have heard of the CI/CD part, right, which is continuous integration, continuous deployment, right? But there are more things which we can do with GitHub Actions. It's not just only a CI/CD tool. So you can also automate your code review processes, right? If someone is creating a PR, you can also manage your PR processes. You can create new branches. You can do a lot of workflow automation using GitHub Actions, right? Issue triaging, for example, if you're running an open source project and if somebody is creating an issue, if you want to triage the issue and then automatically label it under different labels, or if you want to tag them under different releases, all these kind of activities also are possible with GitHub Actions. Right? And of course, CI/CD is one of the core aspects which most of the developers would need. But if you are a core OSS maintainer or anything like that, then you would use all the other benefits as well, right? Like I said, the issue triaging or welcoming your first contributors, right? First time contributors, etc. A lot of things we can do with GitHub Actions. And in this session, mostly we'll be focusing on CI/CD part because that's why I coined it more like for .NET developers. From the developers perspective, whatever is needed is what we are going to look at it. But if anyone has any specific questions, anything else, I'll try to answer. Otherwise, I can definitely update you back later too. Right? But why GitHub Actions, right? So basically, these actions can run on any of these platforms. Like you can run your builds and everything on Linux, Mac OS, Windows, ARM, or containers. So you target it can be targeting for your application can be targeting any kind of platforms, and then you can use actions to run them. And there's something called matrix builds. So let's say talking about .NET developer, right? .NET currently is a .NET 5, right? And we know in the next month in November we are going to have .NET 6 release, and year on year we are going to have new releases coming up, right? And the same thing is happening in different programming languages as well. Even Java would have maybe Java 14 or 15 or whatever. It keeps coming up, right? So how do we ensure? Let's say if you are a library author, at times, how do you ensure your library is compatible with multiple versions of your runtime, right? If you're a .NET library author, let's say you're creating an NuGet package and sharing it with others, right? So you can't really build for only one framework version, right? You would need to address at least a variety of frameworks. So how do you test all of them in parallel, right? Whenever as a library author, that's where you would use something like matrix builds. We'll also see this in the demo, right? And of course, like I said, actions are not limited to .NET, though I'm going to show .NET as an example here. Irrespective of any language, you can use it for Node.js applications or Python or Go or .NET, Java, anything you can use it with GitHub Actions, basically. And as the actions run, you can also see the live logs of how the build is progressing, what steps it is running, and then what are the things it is doing under the hood, etc. And it also comes up with a built-in secret store. You don't have to worry about pushing your secrets anywhere else, right? So what I mean by secret is, for example, let's say you're building your, let's say you are running a .NET application, right? Your application would be having some sort of a connection string to connect to your database. So where do you put your connection string? And then how do you inject the connection string dynamically as part of your build process? Okay, that's one part during the build process. And what if you want to deploy your application into Azure, or if you want to deploy into any other cloud for that matter, right? You also need to maintain those connection settings, or the published profiles as we call it in the .NET world, right? How do you store them? Where do you store them? You don't have to really store it anywhere else and then import it. GitHub by itself has a built-in secret store which we can leverage it. And yeah, multi-container testing. So since if you are working on microservices, and then if at all you were working on Dockerized models, you can also do multi-container testing. That means you will have a front-end application, a back-end application, and then a database. And if you want to bring all of them together, and then if you want to do some testing of those in a mock environment, etc., you can very well do that with the GitHub Actions as well. So all these would be very good if you're, like I said, if you're working on microservices-based architecture, and then if you're having containerized workloads. Right? And of course, GitHub Actions is open source, and then there are a lot of community-powered workflows. So you really don't have to create your own workflows from the scratch. There is, you think of all the major or most frequently used workflows, you will find already there because it's all created by the community already, right? And yeah, so now getting into some of the core concepts, right? I would like you to look at from the bottom of it, right? So at the bottom of every action, at the bottom of the entire GitHub Actions is the action, right? That's the smallest unit you can think of. The action is the smallest executable thing, right? And I'll also show an example, then it will become very clear, right? For now, you can think of that's a simple task. Like let's say if you want to set up an CI pipeline, right? What we will do first thing is we have to check out a particular repository, right? The checking out is an action. And after checkout, what we will do, if it's a .NET application, you will say .NET restore, maybe to restore the NuGet packages. If it's a Java application, maybe you will say men clean install or whatever those commands, right? So those individual steps are called, or individual things are called actions. Checkout is one of the action, and then you will have your .NET build, .NET restore is one of the action, .NET build could be another action, .NET publish could be another action also, right? And all of these actions comprises a step. Right? Sorry, actions and tasks are interchangeable. Those are the smallest unit. And then all of these actions comprise a step. Right? Let's say a group of actions is called a step. And a group of these steps is called a job. So let's say if you want to build a .NET application, for example, right? Like I said, typically we run all of these things, right? First thing is, you will run you will check it out, and then you will build your project, and then you'll run your unit tests, and then maybe you'll publish it into a NuGet package, right? All this become a single job. Now you can also have multiple jobs created, and all of these entire multiple jobs would form your workflow, right? And the execution of this workflow is what is happening, is what is done by the runners. So runners are the actual GitHub executable agents you can think of, right? If you're familiar with the builds, we've always been looking at build agents in the past, right? So if you have used either TFS or anything, there is always a build agent. And even if you're coming from Jenkins background also, there will be a Jenkins master and there will be Jenkins slave, right? Those are like the build agents. That's where the or whatever the steps you're creating is going to get executed, right? In the case of GitHub Actions, it's called runners. The runners are the one that are going to execute the workflow what you define. And in the workflow, you will define multiple jobs, or you can define multiple jobs. And within the jobs, you can have multiple steps. And within the steps, you can have multiple tasks. That's the hierarchy of how the entire action would be created, right? And yeah, this is some more other concepts. See, it's all, like I said, since it's a workflow automation. So what would be the trigger for that particular workflow? That's what is an event, right? And what qualifies, or what is called an event in the GitHub space is more like, let's say, since we're dealing at the repository level, right? Well, all these are the repository events, like somebody's pushing a code to a branch, or if somebody's creating a pull request, or if somebody's creating an issue. Let's say, for example, of issue triaging workflow automation, if you're working on, you can create an issue, and whenever some issue is created, maybe you can notify your maintainers, or also you can triage your issues, etc., right? So all of these are different sort of events. Push pull requests are more at the repository level. For your CI/CD issues is for issue triaging. Release is also more for your maybe if you want to deploy it whenever a new release is created, etc., right? You can do that. Apart from this, you can also have scheduled runs. That's what is called a scheduled events. So all of these would be like the triggers for your workflows, right? And let's say we just talked about events, which is like the starting part of it. And then we also saw some of the steps we are writing it, right? And what if some of the steps produce any kind of outputs, right? That's where these artifacts come into picture. For example, you are building a .NET application. It is going to create a .NET DLL. Right? That's one of the artifacts. If you're running a unit test, it's going to create your unit test report. Right? That's another artifact, like the test results. Or if you're running maybe a Selenium kind of an automation test, right, where you can also do a screenshot. You can take screenshots of your failures, etc. Right? That becomes another kind of an artifact, right? And also all of these build logs, that's also become another artifact, right? So the artifacts, when we talk about it corresponds to the specific action what it is doing. Right? That's where the artifacts would come into picture. And little more advanced concepts. So like I said, these runners, right? If you look at it, these are all available on the cloud, right? You don't have to spin up any infrastructure to run your GitHub action. It's already available out there from GitHub perspective. And of course, there is some pricing associated to it, which we'll look at it later. But yeah, for an open source project, you don't have to pay anything. There are certain limits are available in the minutes. So basically, you just configure the builds, and then everything will be run. So that means you would just specify in which runner you want, and whether you want to run it on a Windows machine or a Mac machine or on a Linux or on a container or whatever. Right? You just need to specify that, and GitHub would automatically provision those infrastructure for us, and then it will spin up that runner, and it will execute the workflow in that particular runner. Right? In here, what is happening is we don't have any control on which machine the particular build or this entire workflow is going to run. Right? If you want to have more control on that particular aspect, if you want to control infrastructure, let's say if you don't want to make everything public, and then if you want to run all your builds only on your machine, there are multiple reasons for it. One could be security, and one you don't want to export your logs, or one you don't want to keep any of the secrets, anything else there, etc. Right? So in such cases, you also have an option to use self-hosted runners. So that means you'll have the entire control over which machine you are running, what kind of software you are installing on that machine, what kind of what version of software you want to install on that machine. You will have complete control over it, right? That's where you will use self-hosted runners. But for the most part, for hobby projects, or even at an organization level, if your organization is cloud first kind of a strategy they're following, right, you can very well live with the GitHub Actions, GitHub runners, the built-in runners, whatever they have. Right? So these are some of the core concepts, and yeah, that's about it. And then we'll jump into the demo part of it. All right. Okay. I hope I am clear. If in case you guys feel it is fast or something, please feel free to stop me, and then I can anytime slow it down. So these are the steps. These are things which we are going to look at it, right? Like a demo. So first we'll start with the basic, creating a basic action for .NET Web API, and then let's also see how we can cache the NuGet dependencies. Right? So this would very much be helpful if you're working in a large project which is having a lot of these dependencies. Right? In the sample application, whatever I'm going to show, you might not feel it very effective, but let's say if you're having a dependency of maybe 20, 30 NuGet packages, right? So you building or pulling them every time as part of the job is going to be time consuming, right? So you can very well cache them, and we'll also see how we can run the matrix builds and yeah, so on and so forth. Let's quickly get started without any further delays. Right, I'll go here, and then I hope my screen and the fonts and everything is visible. I can quickly increase that also.
The right side window is little low.
Smaller. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
I'll
very,
make
very
that full
small.
screen. Better now?
A little bit. One more. Could you please bump it up by one more?
Is it okay?
One more. Yep. Now it's good. Make it black. That contrast was pretty good. Black was much better. We're able to see that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, don't worry about that autocomplete. So I'm going to create a basic web API. Right? That's how we create .NET new web API, and then I'll say .NET Learners House demo, right? I'm just getting a basic web API, and then we'll just typically how we create any new project and then push it into GitHub. I'm just going to follow the entire operations, and then we'll see how we can set up the actions here, right? Say .NET demo. And what we do is we do a build and restore. Basically, so now or restore and build. Now build itself is doing a restore. So I'll just say .NET build, and it will try to restore all the NuGet packages. This is a basic one which is scaffolded, so it's not going to have too many packages. And once this is done, what we could do is just simply we'll run a .NET run just to see what this is doing, right? But there is a good question from Prasad. I'll touch upon that when we get into the caching part, Prasad, right? So yeah, this is my. Where did it go? It went here. I hope that must be a pizza controller now from the weather forecast. The problem if you don't look at the code, right? Let me go look at it.
That will be weather forecast.
Yeah, right. I was having another pizza controller thing, which is what I was trying to. This my actions. Oops. Okay, so
Weather
we have
forecast.
the forecast controller. Right. Yeah, if I do it, it works. Nothing fancy here. Right? We've just picked up a basic web API. Right? Now, what we will do is we'll start pushing this into GitHub, and then we'll start setting up the actions. Right? That is the crux of this particular session. Right? So before that, I'll just quickly create a git ignore, and then I will just some of these files so that these don't get into the source control. Right? And also I need to do one git init here. It's actually too big for me to see here. Let me say git init, and then I got a new git repository creator, right? So if I go back to here, as you can see, it just identified these code changes alone, right? These are the new files which we have added, right? I will just go ahead and commit all of them. Commit. Yeah, I have not created any repository yet, right? So that is something which we will do next. So we'll go to github.com, and I will go to my I'll create a new repository here. I'll say I think I should .NET Learners House demo. Is that the name I gave? Yeah. Okay. So I'll just I'm getting a new repository here, and I'm going to leave all of these as defaults. creating the repository, and we'll quickly add this remote. So I have done all these things because I already initialized the repository here, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'll just go ahead and tag this as my remote and name the branch as a main branch. And then I'm going to push the origin. Sorry. Right. Okay. So far so good. So now if I go back here, we have pushed our repository to GitHub. Right? This is a step one, right? For us to start any GitHub actions, obviously the code needs to be pushed into the GitHub or in repository, right? So now here is where you can get started, right? So what you would do is you can just go ahead and look at these actions here. And if you go in a fresh repository, you can see all these different steps here, right? So it also gives a suggestion. So GitHub understands automatically what kind of workflow this particular repository is having. And then it says it's a .NET based thing. And then you can choose this one, right? Or if you are using a .NET framework based one, you can also use this particular workflow. Or you can also see a lot of other options available showing up here, right? So if you are using Rust or Ruby or any other based applications, you can also take a look at these and then you can set up your workflow. This is one part. Or you can also set up a workflow by yourself and then that is going to create a blank file, right? So when we say workflow, what it is going to create, right? That's what we are going to see next, right? So I'll say set up this workflow. For simplicity's sake, right? So what it does is, as we can see, inside my repository, it creates a folder called .github, and then it will create this workflows folder, and then it is going to create a YAML file, right? The actions are nothing but it's an YAML file. So basically, this GitHub Actions is more like a pipeline as a code. If you have worked with either Jenkins, you would have seen something called Jenkins file. Or if you worked with Azure pipelines, you have something called Azure pipelines.yaml or any other YAML file, right? So this way, what would happen is whatever the build steps that are running or the CI/CD steps that are running in you for your repository, they're also sitting side by side as your source code itself, right? So there are no surprises. As you make the code changes, you can also see what kind of build steps that is running there, right? It's not like somebody else is really maintaining your build steps or anything like that, right? So this is what is, you can give any name here. By default, it shows as .NET.yaml because I chose that particular template. So I'll just maybe say, deploy to Azure because that's what we're going to do at the end of it, right? So I'll name it as deploy to Azure. And then here is where you can see whatever the steps here, right? I hope it's visible, or should I just zoom it in? Is it better now?
Yeah, little bit better. If you bump it up by more, yep.
Okay, cool.
Much better. Thanks.
Cool. So this is the name of the workflow, what it will show and when it runs, right? So I'm just going to make it as build and deploy .NET app. Okay, and then this is the event like we discussed, right? So these are the events which are like the triggers. This is the trigger on push or on pull request, right? For which branches? That's what we're specifying here as branches as main. Whenever there's a push that happens to the main branch, this particular job would run, right? Or whenever there's a pull request that's created to the main branch, this job is going to run, right? And the jobs here is where this is a build job basically, right? This is a job name. You can give any name there. This is a build because it's just running the build here, right? And this is one of the jobs which we are specifying here, right? And this job is going to run on Ubuntu latest, right? This is how you will specify which runner. So when this particular job gets or this workflow gets executed, GitHub would look at this particular runs on, and then it will create the runner for us. It will provision a runner for us, right? And within this job, we are having multiple steps. Sorry, these are the different steps, right? Here, this is using actions. This is how you will reuse the action reuse an existing action, right? So this is something, checkout is something we are not doing anything, right? These actions / are something which are GitHub owned ones, right? The official ones. By actions, whatever you see, and then what you see on the right hand side with the verified ones, these are all official ones provided by GitHub. You can also use unofficial ones or the ones which are available in the marketplace, like I said, the community powered actions, right? You can also use that. So here, what we are saying is it uses actions checkout. That means it's going to check out the code, and then it's going to set up the .NET. And here we are saying .NET at v1. This is the action at the tag name. This is the action version basically. And with .NET version, we are saying 5.0.x. That means 5.0 with any other minor version there, right? And it is running .NET restore and then .NET build without restore, and then it is basically doing a .NET test, right? So if I just commit this one alone, this is going to simply help me set up my CI pipeline, the basic CI pipeline, right? Of course, if you're on enterprise, working on enterprise, you'd have more steps to it, right? You might also run your maybe code coverage, and then you could also run your SAST, which is a static application, so security testing, etc. I'm leaving those things aside for now, or for brevity's sake, because those things depend on the kind of tools what you're using. Each enterprise could use different set of tools for accomplishing those things, right? So here, yeah, as you can see, this is how the preview is. It's basically a YAML file, as you can see, and then you also get nice intelligence options and other things. We'll get to that next as we start editing this file here, right? I'm going to look at the preview here, and then I see it's all good. I'll just go ahead and start committing into the main branch. I mean, of course, you wouldn't do this if you are working in any enterprises. You would create a PR to the main branch. So for now, since it's a demo, I'm just going to directly commit it. I'm just saving some time by creating PR, and then I'll have to again approve myself, etc. Right? Yeah. So now we've created the workflow files here. Right? This is a workflow, and if you can have multiple workflows created per repository. It's not necessarily there has to be only one. You can have multiple workflow files with multiple triggers involved in each one of them, right? So now once it's created, what it automatically, since we have just pushed into the master for the main branch, right? So in the main branch is what we've created, we've given as an event. So this will automatically trigger this particular workflow. And now if you go to actions, you can already see that there is a workflow available here. And this is our name, which we gave it, build and deploy .NET app, right? And within the, before even I get there, it's already complete, as you can see, right? So this is the commit message, whatever I gave, which is create deploy azure.yaml. And this is what is the commit message, etc. Right? If you open this, you can go ahead and look at the individual statuses here, right? So this is the jobs, which is the name of the job was built there. That's what it is showing here. You can either click on this, or you can click on the left to see the logs. So this setup is where it is going to look at our runs on. So as you can see, the current runner version is 2.383.2, and if you look at the operating system, it says Ubuntu. So this is the Ubuntu latest version, which is maintained by GitHub. And if I want to use a specific version, I can also specify that. Since I mentioned as Ubuntu latest, it's picking up whatever is available there. And you can also look at all these other environment settings and things like that, right? And these are the different actions. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, so this is similar to the hosted agents in our ADO, Azure DevOps.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So here we are using the terms as runners, but when I compare this, runners is an hosted agent in our Azure pipeline. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Basically, we are using a hosted agents from Microsoft, right? There also it's called hosted agents. Here it's called runners itself.
Okay, they maintain. I mean, GitHub and like how Microsoft they host it and patch all the latest updates, everything. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah. So as you can see, these things are something which is beyond our control, right? We have not specified we needed which version or whatever, right? So these are the virtual environments which Microsoft has created, and then they are provisioning as part of this when we create the job. And what it also does is, as part of the setup, it also downloads all the actions, right? Whatever the actions we are referencing in our particular workflow, right? So actions such as checkout v2, setup .NET, etc. All of these are also downloaded as part of the things. And then all these are the steps what we have specified, right? Setup .NET and .NET install and things like that, right? Okay, and then we say restore dependencies. These are the actual steps, right? So now let's do some more thing, right? Let's get into the next step of running matrix builds, like what I showed there, right? Let me go back to actions and create a new workflow just to keep them separate, right? Again, I'll choose a .NET workflow only, and now this time I'll say .NET maybe matrix.yaml. And then here is where what you could do is, maybe in the interest of time, let me quickly grab some snippets from my existing repository so that we could save time. What's that? Yeah. Meanwhile, any questions? Are there anything there?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, great. Yeah. So what we are going to do now is, so here it's all the same. The job name is, maybe I'll make it as multi-target build, right? Because we are trying to target multiple .NET frameworks here. At multi-target .NET build, I'll make it. And then, so here in the runs on, right, here is where we can specify something called strategy, right? Use your strategy as matrix, right? And then you can also, okay, sorry, not there. It's a problem with the YAML, so you'll have to remember a lot of these syntaxes and the indentation and everything, right? You say matrix, And then inside this, we can specify this can be any variable. Here what I'm specifying is a .NET version as an array here, and in this I'm going to say it's 5.0.x, and I also want to say if my particular application is compatible with 6.0.x, right? I'm going to make that, and I'll just say I'll set up this name as maybe running. I'll quickly copy this so that it's easier. So basically, this is how you will reference this particular .NET version, whatever we've specified here, right? I'll just say .NET version, and then I'm specifying this so that it's going to display that running the build on which version name. And here, what would change is, so as you can see here with .NET version, we have set it up as 5.0.x, right? Instead of that, we would be using this matrix version here, the same way how we reference a variable here, we will do that. Right, let me complete this code and I'll show you how this works, right? So what we're telling is we are going to run this particular steps on this particular .NET version. Now what runner would do is if you're setting up a matrix build, it will run this parallelly in two different jobs. Okay, one job would run on 5.0.x, other job would run on 6.0.x, right? And since 6.0.x is still in preview, right, I could basically we need to add this as well, include pre-release :true. This flag, if you add it, it will ensure it is able to pull the pre-release versions of a .NET as well. Right? And then rest all steps, I'm going to leave them as is because we're not going to do anything else, right? So this, like I said, would be much helpful for library authors who wants to ensure your application is compatible with multiple things. So here we are looking at .NET. Let's say if you're building an NPM also, right? NPM module, a Node.js-based module. There also the evolution of the frameworks or the versions are very fast, right? You can use these kind of matrix builds to ensure things are working fine in multiple versions. So I'll just quickly verify it. Okay, it's too big for me to check here. Just give me a second. .NET checkout, blah, blah, blah. And then I think, yeah, we are good. I am going to say start commit. I'm going to commit this new file. And now, as you can see, we've created two workflows, right? Now, both of the workflows should run. If you go here, see create .NET matrix. This is for build and deploy .NET, as you can see here, right? This is the first one which we created because we push into the main branch. It is running that. Plus, there's also this create .NET for. Now, we'll go and click this multi-target .NET build and click on this, right? So as you can see, this is already starting running in two different things, right? So by default, these jobs would be running in parallel, right? We've not specified any kind of dependencies, right? And this matrix is meant to be running in parallel, right? Because we don't want to wait for one version of your .NET to complete to run the other version, right? So by default, these jobs would run in parallel. But there's also a way how we can make it sequencing. That's what we will do next when we try to deploy this app into an Azure, right? Okay, so this is a quick view of the .NET. So as like I showed in the matrix, you can specify as many versions there, and then how many ever versions you're creating, it is going to run them in that many things, right? So this one example is I just showed as using a .NET version, right? Let's say if you're building a cross-platform application, you can also try to run it in Mac, and then you can run it in Windows, you can run it in Linux, right? It spins up all of these three different runners, and then your application would get built in all these different variants there as well, right? When you're running automation tests. For example, if you want to run if you're building a cross-platform mobile application, you can run for iOS, you can run for whatever the Android or whatever, right? So there are a good number of possibilities if you're using a matrix-based builds, right? So that's around the matrix setup. And okay, I think I missed the caching part here, right? And then we jumped into the matrix. Maybe let me quickly show that as well before we jump into the CD aspects of it. Right. So for caching, what we need to, let's say if I want to edit this particular workflow file, right? I am telling deploy to Azure. I'll go ahead and click on this edit. And when you come here, you can also see suggestions coming up here, right? So it's search for marketplaces and actions, right? So you can choose something called cache. So if you click on it, it will automatically show what are the things it is using, right? How to use this particular snippet here, right? So you can just do a copy here, and then you can just paste it because we want to do it before the restore action. I'm just going to place it there, and of course, you need to work with your indentation. And yeah, indentation of map entry. What does it say? I think name user should be here. Yeah, with path is what you need to give. So what I'm going to tell is I'm going to say this is NuGet packages path. right? See, one more thing you all need to be aware is when we say these runners, right? Each instance of your workflow is going to run on a new machine, right? It's not going to reuse the same machine. GitHub is not going to reuse the same machine, right? So that's the reason why we are trying to do this caching, so that it will be able to reuse these cache libraries across these multiple instances, multiple executions. Okay, so we also need to mention the key. So I'm gonna put the key like this, right? That means in the runner OS, whatever the file is there, it is going to use that. It's going to specify an uniquely identifiable key, and then you also need to specify with which name you need to restore the things. And this chunking is, for now, it's not needed, so I'm going to remove that. What is its problem? It also should be here only. Yeah, and these ones should be a little behind. Path. Yeah, I think this should be good. So basically, like I said, this is going to be handy if you're working with a large .NET based application where you have multiple NuGet restorations are happening. Even if it's a few seconds of your improvement, that's good, right? And also when we talk about pricing here, since it's all on hosted agents, like what Vishwa called, right? So here also, since it's all the billing is per minutes, right? So if you can make your build as fast as possible, you'll be charged as less as possible, right? It's like that. So it's always better to cache these dependencies so that it doesn't really keep pulling them all the time. And yeah, so let me do a quick preview, and then we can just start commit. Yeah, maybe I'll just say add a caching of dependencies, right? And yeah, and again, if you go and see that should have triggered both the things, because now we have both the builds there set up there, both would run, and hopefully in this it should do a caching. So this is what is the live logs. I think last time I couldn't get there, right? So as and when each steps happen, you can see these logs here, right? Setup.NET, it's doing a cache, and yeah, and then first time when it runs, it shouldn't find anything in the cache. Yeah, so here is where it is setting up all the keys and other things, right? So if you go here, cache not found for input keys, linux dash NuGet dash whatever, right? And then finally, I think it would go ahead and put it into the cache, basically. See, cache saved successfully. So next time when I run, it would find that it should be in the cache. Yeah, we'll do that in a while, right? You can also specify the overall duration, retention policies and things like that as well. That I'm skipping for a while. Okay, so far what we've done is CI part, right, which is continuous integration. As and when we commit anything into the master branch, we can see that the code is already, it's getting built, right? Okay, there is a question: do the jobs within a workflow execute in parallel? Yes, it does execute in parallel. That is what I just showed as part of matrix as well. And even if you are setting up a separate one, also it will execute in parallel by default. If you want to make it a sequential, we need to handle them separately, which is what we're going to do now as part of our deployment, right? Let's see if there are any other question. Okay.
There was one. The difference between checkout 1 and checkout 2. So I posted that link from GitHub where they were telling that it gets only the first commit instead of bringing in the entire history. You can take up that question.
Okay.
If you want.
I think yeah, sure. Maybe I can just answer a couple of questions before we get into the deployment aspects, right? Sure. Yeah, I see but the question I see is, what is the difference between actions checkout v2 and actions setup.NET v1, right? See, this checkout is basically doing the actual git checkout, right? This is how basically your code is in GitHub, right? The code needs to go into the actual runner's workspace, right? That is what this checkout does. It's basically a git checkout, how we do when we have or git clone, whatever we do to get the repository into local machine, right? It's the same thing. So as you can see, fetching up the repository is fetching the repository to us. It is trying to do here, right? See, git whatever fetch, git fetch it was it is doing. That's what is a checkout, right? And after check, this is only to get the code base, right? Setting up .NET is the setting up the actual .NET version on which the subsequent steps should run. That's what is happening. You see, it's trying to install the .NET appropriate version here, right? See, what we are telling is we are taking an Ubuntu machine here, right? This Ubuntu might not have .NET by pre-install. right? So that is what we are trying to do with this setup.NET step, right? Here it is trying to install .NET into this Ubuntu machine, and then the subsequent steps, this particular .NET CLI is what would be used to build the actual application. Yeah. Okay, next question from Prasad. Can we restrict deployment permission to some users or group? Yes. Approvals? Yes, that's what I'm going to show next as part of the deployments. Prasad, please hang on for a while. And then the action checks out your repository under GitHub workspace. So you're looking at, okay, LD, you answered that. Okay. Okay, does caching works with third-party binary repositories like Artifactory or Nexus? Yes, it should. It would, yes. So you can specify basically from where you want to really put. See, because I have not used any other internal or any other private registries, right? I haven't specified those values here. It's by default pulling it from the NuGet repository, public NuGet repository, right? If you are maintaining your own Artifactory, either in Nexus or JFrog or whatever be it, right? You can specify those things as well, and then it can try to pull the things from there. See, what it does is it is going to only caching, right? All those feeds related links you would specify on your application. Let's see if it's a NuGet repository, right? You'll have a NuGet config that would specify from where it needs to go and look up the actual DLLs or the NuGet packages, right? So all this task does is, if there is a if the DLL is already downloaded, or if the NuGet package is already downloaded, it is going to persist it in a cache. It will not have any knowledge or around from where this particular NuGet package is coming up. And that's all would be part of the actual NuGet configurations what we create as part of our code base. Okay, be it for NuGet, or if you're working in Java, you will have some Maven files also, right, where you will specify from which Maven repository you want to pull the actual jars, right? So those would things go under as part of your code configuration itself. This is only to see if there is an dependency already existing. It is just going to cache that here in the workspace. That's all. Okay, cool. So now let's get into the deployment parts, right? So for deployment, since we're going to do on Azure, so I'm going to quickly create an Azure Azure app service. I do have one, but since it's already existing, it might not. I don't want to do that app. Let me say app service or web app. Sorry. But it keeps going like this, and I'll go here. So basically, I'm on my Azure portal and just trying to create a new web app. So for simplicity, I'll just say DLS live demo .azure websites, and I'm going to use code here. We're not going to look at web app for containers now. For now, let's look at the code. I'm going to say it's .NET 5 based ones, and I will use Linux. And the region is South India. I will make it. And I do have an app service plan created. I'm going to use that. And then deployment, I'm going to skip it for a while because we'll set up the deployment from our pipeline. So let it be disabled for now. Monitoring also, I think I don't have an option now because of the things which I chose. And I'll just make it as demo. I will tell you why I'm doing this next. And yeah, let's get this one created, right? We are creating a basic app service called DLS live demo, and that's where we are going to deploy our application, right? So as this happens, I'll also quickly create another app service just to mimic the lower environment versus non-prod versus prod kind of a thing, right? So I'm going to create another app service here, which would be used as a prod one. DLH live demo prod, right? And then I'll say .NET 5 and South India. The all specs are the same, just from the to mimic different environments. I'm just doing this, and here I'll just say environment :prod. Okay, so okay, app service has been create. Yeah, ideally you will have a different app service plan. Okay, it's getting a new one with this. Okay, I didn't see that. Fine, I will need to do the cleanup later. Okay, I hope the first one would be ready. Yes, I'll go to the resource. Yeah, so this is our app service, right? So the easiest way to get it deployed into the app service is using a published profile, right? If you are using Visual Studio, you would already know that, right? You can set up a published profile, and then from there you can do it, right? The same thing is what we are going to follow now. So as you can see here, there is this option called published profile. I hope you are able to see this button, this one here, right? Yeah, here's where I'm going to download this published profile for this Azure app service, and then I would be adding this into the built-in secret of GitHub here, right? So let it come. Where is it going? Okay, it's here. Come on. Okay, yeah. So I've grabbed my published profile, and what I'm going to do now is, so this is my repository, .NET Learner's House. I'm going to go into the settings, and if you go to settings, you can see the secrets here, right? I hope this is visible, the secrets part here, right? That is where we would go ahead and put our secrets, right? When you go to secrets, you can already see two things. One is environment secrets, and then the repository secrets, right? First, let's create the repository secret, and then let's get into the environment, right? So I'll go ahead and say repository secret, and then I am going to paste this published profile here, and I'll say maybe app service web app published profile, right? Azure web app published profile is what I'm going to do it. I will add the secret here, right? And of course, we can set up different permissions for who can see these secrets and other things. Not everyone who's having the read access, write access to the repository will be able to do that. Only who are admins on this particular repository will only be able to either modify or delete or create the secrets, right? So this is one.
That is real good feature, Swami, because I was a little scared. Like if I have access to your repo, I'm pretty much I have the keys of the kingdom. I was a little worried. This is good feature. Thanks.
So there are a couple of settings there as well. I'll get to that, Vishwa, right? How we can still do that. Let's say if one of you is trying to fork this particular repository, right? What would happen to these actions, right? There's a setting available for that as well. I believe I'm already in settings. If you go to the actions part here, right? So you have all these different pieces here, this fork pull request workflows, right? You can define how you want to set up your permissions, right? You want to require approval for first time contributors, or you require approval for all the outside collaborators, or you want approval for first time contributors who are new to GitHub, etc. Right? So with that, you can change. Basically, they will get read access to not the secret access, but at least the workflow can run, right? Workflow will get executed, but they'll not be able to manage any of your secrets or anything like that.
Okay, if I fork your repository, I will not be able to deploy those resources, isn't it? If you set up the continuous,
yes, you can't deploy. I think yes,
I'll not be able to. Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
Correct. Thanks. And where were we? We were in secrets, right? Yeah, so we've created the secrets. Hopefully, maybe since I'm there, I'll also create grab the other one as well, right? Prod, and then get that done. So this is like another prod. So I'm going to create another, get the published profile, and I'll open that. Where is it? Okay, text edit. Prod, right? And this prod, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make it as an environment specific, right? Because I don't want to make it a generic one. So here is where you will define environments, right? I'm going to create a new environment called maybe prod, and then I'll say configure environment. Here is where the approvals and other things would come into picture. Right? So here it says environment protection rules, right? It says required reviewers. So that means whoever you're adding here, if they approve, only then the deployment to this particular environment will go through. Right, I'll say required reviewers, and then you can also wait how long you want to wait before the deployment should get rejected or auto rejected or not, right? So I'll just save these protection rules. This is one feature to protect the environment or restrict the deployments to different environments, right? And
so this is similar to the release pipeline approval in our Azure DevOps.
Yes, right? Not just release pipeline, even Azure DevOps also. If you are using the pipeline as a code, Azure pipelines YAML, right? There also you can get environments. Because not the release pipelines is not having the YAML based thing. So it's still a GUI based setup, right? If people want more of a YAML based control, there also you have environments in Azure DevOps. It's synonymous to that only. So where you can set up these approvals, etc. Here also it's the same environments.
So these are two different things. Even if I set up everything in the YAML with the latest YAML, the code reviewers are different, and the deployment reviewers are different. These are the deployment reviewers.
Correct.
Right. Thanks.
Exactly. Yes. So the code reviewers will come into picture when you create the pull request. Right? Because that's pre-merging your code into the master branch.
Exactly.
What we are talking is correct. Now what we're discussing is, let's say the code is already in the master branch. How are we going to take that code into multiple environments? Right?
Okay.
How can deploy into dev?
Correct. Yeah, the continuous integration pipeline will pick up those code and build the binaries and drop it into the artifact location. So this guy picks up from this. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm going to show now. Yes.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So now you can also add other branch rules and everything. If you want to say only from main branch, or you want to deploy it, etc. Right? You can also add those rules and everything here. right? And these are the environment specific secrets, right? I will paste this and then I'll say Azure Web App Profile prod, right? So I'll just say this. So here what would happen is now this environment specific secret would be accessible only if you're trying to create a deployment to that specific environment and not outside of it. Okay, we'll see how this thing works, right? I'll quickly save all of these things. And let's go back to our actions. I believe we've created the Azure App Service that's up and running there, and then we also modified this, right? So let's go ahead and modify our this pipeline. Sorry, maybe I should have gone to the code. Yeah, I'll edit this, and again, in the interest of time, let me quickly grab some more code snippets. Yes. So like I said, first thing is, to setting up different jobs, right? What you would do is like how we have given build here, right? You can specify something called another thing called deploy, right? I hope my indentation is fine, or is it not? Okay. And you also need to specify where it's going to run, right? Because each job would also run in its own runners, right? Though it's all in the same workflow file, each of these jobs will run in its own runners. Okay. And then okay, maybe I will not copy paste so that it's easy for you all to understand as well. Deploy, what does it say? Unknown key, it's telling. Why? Same indentation as this. I think it's an indentation problem.
Yeah, if you want, you can copy paste that, Swami,
Yeah.
and you can
No, I
explain.
think it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's an indentation problem only. That's the worst thing which can happen in a YAML file.
I know. No, in any demo, when we start typing the code, this definitely happens.
Yeah, right. So for now, I'll create two directly, right? Deploy to dev is what I'm going to do one, right? And okay, maybe I'll finish this artifacts only, and then I can go there. So now to upload the artifacts, right? Sorry, I'm just jumping between things. In the interest of time, I'm trying to see how I can fast track it. So if you want to upload a build artifact, right, you can choose this basically called which says upload a build artifact, and then I can just bring that up here, and this is going to upload my entire artifact, right? So again, the same indentation stuffs here. I would need to fix them. Oops, sorry, here. Options, blah blah blah, all these things we will ignore for a while, right? So what we would bother is just where are we going to upload it. The reason why we want to upload the artifact is, see here, this guy would produce the DLLs in this machine, right, in a different machine, and the deploy to dev is going to run in another machine, right? So we need to ensure the artifacts or the other machine is able to pull down these artifacts, and then it's able to deploy it. Okay. So here I'm gonna again do some more copy paste activities. So the name of it, I will just simply, this is just the name of the artifact. I will just make it as .NET Web API demo or something like that, right? And then the path, right? So I'm going to, now I'll also introduce some of these environment variables, right? I see. Basically, what we typically do when we are deploying it to anywhere, we build it and then we publish it, right? So that's also another step which I need to add, right? When we publish, we will publish it to some other folder called whatever, publish or whatever, right? That's what I'm going to do now. So here you will use environment variables like this. You'll say env and then say maybe publish path, right? And then that path could be /publish. That means in the current folder in the workspace, inside that I'm creating a new folder called /publish, and that's where I'm trying to publish my entire thing, right? So now I will just, I think I need to press an enter here. Okay, publish path is set up, or maybe the environment variables as a good practice, it's better to put it like this so that you know it's you are accessing a variable here, right? So this is my publish path. So now what I also need to do is I would also need to publish my thing after my tests are run successfully, right? I will say run .NET publish -c. I will make it as release mode by default, and then -o. Here is where I will say env dot this publish path, right? Env dot publish path is what I am going to put in here. Basically, this is how you would access an environment variable, right? You define environment variable on top, and then you will say env dot whatever the variable you are going to use. It is going to consider that particular variable there. right? If you can also put them in single quotes, if the path is having any other space or anything like that, right? It's better to do that. And then yeah, that is one thing. We have specified the published path there. And next is the artifact. So now the artifact is going to be available in this published path, correct? So we will also give the same path here as the artifact path, right? This is where basically this upload thing would go to this folder, and then it picks up the artifacts and then publish it and then upload the artifact. Take the artifact from here and then upload it into the workspace here, right? That is step one, right? I'll remove all these unnecessary things as well. And now this is around the uploading the artifact. Now next comes downloading the artifact, right? We also have another action for that. You can go here and then search for download artifact, and then that's going to do that downloadable artifact. But what I will do now is I'll just copy things which I have already. So first thing, the deploy job is it needs to download the artifact which the other job has put in, right? Steps I have to give. Deploy to dev, and then steps. What is the name I gave here? This is the artifact name which we have given here, right? So you need to push the same name, telling .NET Web API demo, and then I think the path is not /publish here. It's just this env.publish path. Correct. This is the path from where I'm going to download the artifact, right? So this is one part. This is just downloading the artifact, and then what is our next step is around deploying it into the Azure, right? So for that also you can go ahead and search for Azure Web App, and then you get ready-made snippets. Azure Web App deployment, and these are the different things it takes, and I'm gonna simply copy paste some of those stuffs as well here. Okay. So this is a action which is readily available to deploy into web app, and the app name is what I have to give. So what is the app name which we created? Our first one was DLH live demo, right? So I'll just quickly grab that name from here, and I'll go ahead and give that. And then here publish profile is where we would use secrets. So this is how you will access the secrets, right? As you can see here, the publish profile, we are telling secrets.azure web app publish profile. I assume I retain the same name. So this is how you will give the publish profile, and then the package is where is the package available? I think it's available in the publish path directly, right? So I'll just give that environment publish path. And once you are done with all these, if everything is fine, we should be able to deploy our application into the Azure App Service now, right? So what all we learned, quickly to recap, we learned how to set up the environment variables, and then we also learned how to add another job, right? But one thing we still have missed is, I know it's not an interactive session, sorry, we are on YouTube live. So here, if you look at it, right, this deploy to dev, I have just created this, and then there is this build, right? But like I said, both of these are going to run in parallel, right? So, but we need to ensure it needs to wait until the deploy is going to, until the build is complete, deploy should not run, right? For that, you need to use something called needs, and then you should give the other job name. So here you will say the job name as build. So I'll just say needs build. That means this is going to wait until this particular build is going to complete, right? And yeah, and this also gives a lot of other benefits. If at all you want to reuse some of these, let's say if you are, for example, if you are building a Docker container, right? Typically, what you would use it, you will as a git commit as your whatever your tag ID or whatever, right? If you want to pass any of the outputs from one job to another, or pass anything from one job to another, you can also use outputs and things like that. You can use those, which will say needs.build. Whatever the output you generate as part of the previous job, you'll be able to pass on them to that. Those are a little more advanced steps. For now, let's not worry about them. Our basic thing is, yes, we are trying to chain these two jobs basically, right? Once the build is complete, then the deploy to dev would happen, right? Build Ubuntu, blah, blah, blah. I think we are covered. We're downloading the artifact, and then we are putting into the Azure Web App, right? I think we are already 4:50. In the interest of time, I'll also bring in the deploy to prod as well here, right? And then I'll explain how the environments part work. Okay. So deploy to prod. So basically I'm creating another job here called deploy to prod, right? So here I'm telling this needs deploy to dev to be complete. Deploy to dev is my previous job. Once this is complete is when I would want to start the deploy to prod, right? That's why I put a needs here. And again, here also runs on is there, right? What is key here is this guy, environment, right? Environment colon prod. That means this is environment to which I'm going to deploy. Right? And we have already set up the environment protection rules there, right? So now whenever there's a deployment that's going to happen to this, it will ask for the approval. Right? Again, same thing. I'm trying to download the artifact, and I think the path I would need to change a little bit. NVIDIA published path, and then I'm trying to do the web app deployment, and this name also I would need to change it to DLH live demo prod. It's live demo prod is what I'm gonna put. And this is the published profile secret, right? So this secret, like I said, it's applicable only in this environment. If you try to use this secret somewhere else in the previous deployment step, it is going to fail because this secret is set up at that particular environment, right? And the package also, I believe this should be the right package. And yeah, that's about it. So we've created two different jobs. Basically, we started with CI and then we are enabling CD, and to prod we have put a gated kind of deployment. Right? We have put a review, and then once the review is complete is when you would deploy it. Right? I'll just say enabled CD here, and then I'll do the commit. Now let's go back and see how this all things are working out, right? Build and deploy .NET app is what our thing. So now if you see, it will show these three things, right? Build, and then after build, it's going to run the deploy to dev. And after this, it is going to run this deploy to prod, right? So let's just give a few seconds for it to run. Meanwhile, I'll see if there are any other questions I can take.
Yeah, we do have a couple.
Okay. So every time will it fork new machine and will do .NET install and .NET build process? Yes, process. Like I said, every job itself is running on a different machine. So it's not even a fork. So these different jobs also runs on different machines. So it's up to us to see how we want to transfer any state, if at all we have transfer between these different jobs. Right. Yes, I believe VS Code has internal support for AML. Yes, of course it is having. Yeah, I was trying to show the easier route to take it from here. Yeah, definitely you can use VS Code. And one other thing you would need to be mindful of if you're using from VS Code and doing a commits, right? For example, if you're using a PAT, which is a personal access token, right? You need to ensure you check the workflow access for that. Otherwise, if you're using a normal PAT, it will not allow you to commit your workflow file. See here, I went here and then directly when I said new workflow, GitHub automatically created that .github/workflows folder, right? You can technically do it manually also in on the VS Code side. If at all you're trying to push your workflow file for the first time, if you don't have the appropriate path, it will not allow you to do it. Okay. Yeah, I think we were good. That's pretty good to see the first time it works, right?
No, I was about to ask this question. Is there a approval for deployment? The moment I saw that Swaminathan has requested, it came to your approval. I said that, okay, Swaminathan read my mind and he already covered this.
Yeah. That's what we were setting up in the approval. So as you can see, a deploy to dev is done, and then deploy to prod, it says it's waiting. If I go here, it will ask for my approval. Of course, this is me, so it's requesting my approval only. I can either approve and deploy or reject. I'll just say prod, and then I'll say LGTM looks good to me. Let's rock and roll, whatever, right? You want to do on a deployment. And then I'm going to approve this. Of course, I should have gone and tested my dev version. Since it's demo, I didn't do that. So yeah, once the deployment is complete, it will go and start the deployment as what we have given in those steps.
So right? It's like a little bit of confidence level testing or something before we do pushing into prod. I mean, the lower level environments like dev, we can deploy automatically, then run automated test cases, push it to test environment, hand off to QA, wait for their approval before pushing it to UAT and prod.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I think I did a blender for the prod. This one, yeah, I found it. The name I didn't update, but that's why it failed. Yeah, you should not be doing it. Whoever is reviewing should review the things properly. Okay. So I'll go here quickly to check if it's actually it was deployed right.
I would like to paraphrase Swaminathan. I would like to paraphrase. You are showing how can things go wrong in real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I believe they should return the data. Hopefully, meanwhile, let it run. Meanwhile, I'll go and fix that particular typo. view raw logs, view workflow file. But I hope everyone got the idea, right, around how this entire thing works, which is what I wanted to show.
Definitely.
Where is my .NET Web API demo is the name.
So this happens sequentially, isn't it? Like the
Currently,
first
it is
log.
happening sequentially because we have put this needs. Right? If I don't add this one, then both will happen parallelly. So maybe I can show that as well, right? Maybe I'll just quickly remove this for demonstration's sake, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to deploy into both environments, right? This could happen if it's a test. Obviously, you can do that, right? You don't have to wait for a dev to complete also if you have that such requirement,
Couple
right?
of lower environments in two different regions.
Correct.
We want to deploy
Correct.
to both the regions.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Multi-region kind of scenarios. If you have it, definitely you can do them in parallel, right? So now I'll go ahead and preview the changes. I've removed this dependency, and then I've said .NET Web API demo is the name, and fixing CD issue. Right. I'll
Okay, it's
commit this
something like
here.
a prerequisite. When you mark it as a needs, that means
Needs.
the
Correct.
previous step should be success for it to go and pick up the artifacts of the.
Correct. See, now you can see in the visualization itself, right? Build and then the deploy to dev. I should have waited for the build basically, but yeah, I removed that as well. Anyways, yeah, as you can see in the visualization here, right? That it is. Oops, where is that? Okay, it's already doing it. So basically, where do I go there? Oops, clicked the wrong one. Not this. Build and deploy .NET app. See, fixing CD issue is our current commit, right? So here you can see this is dependent on this because I put a needs there, right? Ideally, I should have put a needs for this also. Then it would have come here below because without
Okay.
build I can't do it, right? I removed the needs for the
Right.
earlier it was saying like this build and then to deploy, and once dev deployment is complete, we are going to prod. It now from build only I should go into both dev and prod,
Both the environments,
right?
both the environments, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it will do that, but luckily since we have the approval in place, it is still waiting. By this time the build is complete, so now I'll go ahead and approve this. Right. I will say okay, approve and deploy. And now this would start the deployment to production. Hopefully this time it works. You could see that, right? It already started asking for the review well when as and when the build was running itself. Right? That's how you would make things run in parallel if you don't have a dependency. Let me see if this is working. Yeah, I think the API is working fine. It returned, right? So we were able to set up the entire CD for our basic .NET based web API. Right. I hope this also works in prod. Yeah, prod is also done, and I can quickly go and show that as well. It'll take a while because it's the first request which we are sending to this particular instance. We just finished the deployment. Yeah, there you go. I think it's already there, right? So that is what we did. We did see how to create a action for deploying .NET to Azure App Service, and then we used environments. And status badge is something which we can use. Yeah, other two, I don't think I have time. What's the time? 4:20 already. Yeah, so status batch is nothing but you can add these build deployment statuses into your application. Basically, see, as you can see, these are the different badges it will create. It will say build and deploy .NET is passing, right, on which branch you want to have it. It'll say main branch, then it will say build and deploy passing, right, copy status badge markdown. And then if I go ahead and commit that one into my README, it will show up the appropriate statuses. Right, I'll just say build status. You might have seen on a lot of these open source projects, right? You would see these build status showing up there, right? It will show this build and deploy status as passing. If you have multiple workflows, you can copy all of them and then you can put them as well, right? So let's say, for example, I think we have multiple here.
So this gives little bit of confidence for the guys who are forking it or who are trying to review or use our code. They know that, okay, this code is in a compilable state as of last check-in. That gives a little bit of confidence.
Correct, exactly. That's the use of the status badges, right? So you can also create multiple ones. You can put all these different tables in your README, Markdown, etc. See, this is one build and deploy .NET app, and then multi-target .NET build. How many ever workflows you have, you can call out all of them specifically here, and then you can push them as well. So that anyone tomorrow or today or later, anytime you come and look at this particular repository, you can see that this particular build status is already up and running there, right? That's about setting up the build statuses. And I know we went through a lot of these things now, right? A lot of how to say, basically it's good to know how things work, but there are a lot of other easier ways to do this as well, right? If I can take another 5 more minutes, Vishwanath, is that okay?
Oh, please go ahead. And before that,
Mm-hmm.
I have one couple of queries just for my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I think everything is possible. I'm purely coming from the Azure DevOps world.
Mm-hmm.
I can correlate how tough it was when we have to create one build pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
dragging those visual things and
Classic
testing
editor.
it. Exactly, classic
Mm-hmm.
editor. I mean, we
Mm.
used to sweat a lot to create. Now it is like couple of
That's it.
statements and it is well, it's much
Yes.
easier. And the second
Yes.
thing is we used to have one pipeline for when
Mm-hmm.
someone raises the pull request,
Mm-hmm.
and one
Yeah.
pipeline which gets executed after the mandatory approvers approve that we call it
Mm-hmm.
as a continuous integration, and
Right.
then the deployment start. So we can
Mm-hmm.
replicate the same kind of thing. I mean, we don't need to now
Of
the
course.
things. It's like developer walks to production, like you
Correct.
check in,
Yes.
it does a compilation, approvals,
Yeah.
continuous integration, and deployment.
Yeah, let me do this, right. Right away, I'll
Yeah.
create a PR and then I'll show how these things also work, right? So see, I'm
Mm,
now creating a PR to my main branch from my patch branch here, right? When you say create
mm,
pull request, you should already see another thing running. But you would also need to ensure you put the right checks in places, right? See here, these are the
exactly.
different checks it is already running, right? What I mean by checks in places is in our YAML file also, right? For now,
Mm,
for any build we are running, we are doing a deployment, which you would not do ideally. Right?
exactly.
If
This
you
is
go
what
to
I was coming
actions
from.
here, yeah,
Mm,
see here, because I was not covering that PR related thing specifically, I am just running everything here, right? All these steps are
mm,
running, right?
mm.
Ideally, you should not run only in your PR build, it will only do your build alone. All these things you'll put some
Compilation.
checks to, yeah, only the
Mm,
compilation you will do. All these things you will put as checks, right? See, it
mm.
already deployed to prod is stopped because I put a branch to it. Branch SV Swaminathan patch 1 is not allowed to deploy to prod due to environment protection rules, right? So
So
this is
we used to have before the approvers look into this. First thing is we'll compile the code and we'll
mm,
run the unit test case,
right.
ensure that the coverage is 70 to 80%. Next
Mm,
thing is Sonar Cube static analysis,
correct.
and
Mm,
then white source. So these
yes.
are the four mandatory checks before the first reviewer go and look into your pull request.
Correct. Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And all those things are very much possible here as well, right?
okay.
Everything, whatever you just explained, you do have corresponding actions here to run your sonar scans or to run your other things, right? And the other
Okay.
beauty is with respect to actions is if you don't find anything available, you can create your own. And you can create custom actions, and there are different ways you can create custom actions. Most of these actions are created using JavaScript,
Mhm.
and you can also create actions which runs in a Docker container, right? You can technically write a C# program or whatever, and then Dockerize it, and then you use that Docker container in you as an action, as a custom action in your steps, right? That's
Wow.
also
Okay.
possible.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, so it is in a pretty good shape now since the time
Seriously.
it's been launched, right? You can very well start looking at it and then start leveraging these, right? Yeah, the easier part, what I was going to tell is you can also create these things from Azure itself, right? For example, if you are having I think most of you would be aware of static web apps, right? That's like if you're having any kind of an SPA, be it based on Angular, React, or Vue, or whatever, or if you're having anything on Blazor or anything like that, right? Which doesn't have any kind of server side rendering or any kind of server component involved in it, right? You can put all those things in a static web app that's an Azure resource which is available, right? So here I'll go ahead and show how we can also still create our pipeline. So I'll say, okay, I should have used this static web app. Okay, let's demo a free, and I don't think free would be available here. For now I'll use East Asia, and you can see here as GitHub source, right? You can sign into GitHub, right? And I assume I would have something here. Ah, freak! I don't know if I remember when GitHub password. Okay, that's a bummer. Okay, I think I can also do after that, or no? It's not allowing, is it? Let's say other. Yeah, I need to recollect my GitHub password. So basically, you can create a static web app, and then if you set up the pipeline from here directly, right, it will automatically create and GitHub Actions for you. Okay, let me try once again, giving my password.
I'll give that a shot. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that is allowed for web apps also, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But
Okay.
web apps wouldn't really create an end-to-end. At least I have not seen creating an end-to-end GitHub Actions-based pipeline. But this does create. So I can show an existing one, right, which I was using before. If I go to my repositories, there is this Blazor Wasm static apps demo, which I did sometime back, right? So if you go look at this, see, it said MSFT git CI, right? This is something which I didn't do a commit, right? This entire thing was created from static apps, the static web apps directly. If I sign into GitHub there, and then if I just click, choose a repository, and then choose the appropriate framework like Blazor, etc., it will automatically set up the deployment with the workflow here. So if you come to the core, you will see all these things, the build and deploy job, right? It creates this entire job for you. Now what would happen is anytime I commit anything to this particular Blazor Wasm app, it will automatically get deployed into that particular static web apps. Okay, it's that easy.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, yeah. The only thing with static web apps is you don't get an what to say user friendly the URL like this. You would need to do a proper domain mapping so that your things would work appropriately or look good. Right? You have to go to custom domains and then you'll have to map them with the static web apps. But yeah, but the point here is around GitHub Actions. That is very much possible with the static web app as well, right? And if you want to look at
Right.
further things, I also created an Azure function as well. I don't have time to explain them, so I'll just quickly share that repository link. So func gh actions demo, you can take a look at that, where this is a basic HTTP trigger based functions, and then it's pretty much simple or the same, right? Like what we just did. So these are the same steps as how we are doing a .NET build test publish. And here there is an existing action called Azure functions action. You give the same name like the function name and then the package and then the publish profile. Right? If you just do all of these things and then you are done. As in when you commit anything to this particular functions repository, you will get that function deployed in Azure, right? So a lot of these deployments and everything has become a lot easier with a few lines of code with GitHub Actions, which is what I wanted to just let you guys know. Yeah. And if you want to see that functions in action, I can also quickly show that. So whatever the article down as meetup. And this func dlh demo, and this is the function, a basic or the whatever you get out of the scaffolded template, right? So this is the HTTP trigger one function. I didn't even bother to change the name of it. So I can copy it and then just go ahead and say name equal to Swami, for example, right? You just say hello Swami triggered, right? So this entire deployment happened via the Azure, via the GitHub Actions, whichever I've set up and whichever I just shown now, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I had. I think all of my demo items are checked now. I'm up for any questions.
There were a couple. Senthil was asking, why did we choose Ubuntu machine?
Okay, so that Ubuntu is not for deployment, right? That is the actual runner that's the action runner. If you look at it, right, when we define this action, right, it needs to run on a specific machine, right? I'll go back to that particular repository and then I'll show that .NET Learner House demo.
Oh, his query was, since you are deploying the Azure web app, why do we need a Ubuntu machine for deployment?
Correct. Yeah, that's what we are not doing the deployment to Ubuntu machine. We are not creating any virtual machine here, right? What this deploy thing does is when it sets up the job, right? It needs to know where should it run these steps, whatever we have given, right? Like 2 steps we have mentioned, right? One is downloading a build artifact, then perform the deployment.
Might be. I'm reading it in a different way. He's asking, why do we need a Ubuntu hosted agent instead of taking a Windows hosted agent to deploy? We are
that's
using
up
the
to us.
.NET. Yeah, right.
Okay, I mean .NET is now it's cross-platform, right? You can use anywhere, and of course the Linux VMs are also cheaper than Windows VMs. I don't want to bill myself a lot.
And one more thing.
But my understanding was this. Maybe Senthil, you could correct whatever your thought was, right? Is your question around the choice of virtual machine here, or the choice of a virtual machine in which Azure web app runs? You can clarify that so that we
could, yes, 2 things. See this was first part of his query. He's telling that since you are deploying the Azure web app, why do we need a Ubuntu machine for the deployment? So the part 2 of that is he's asking, can't we leverage the same build job for deploying deploying to
Okay,
Azure.
I think I get that question, right? See, technically you
Yeah.
can do that, right? There's no harm in doing that, right? But typically, if you follow these 12-factor app principles or anything like that, right, your build and release should be separated to keep things in proper order, right? The easiest way is, yes, like you said, you can have one build job which also does .NET build, publish, and then do a deployment. I believe I also have done it quite some time back in my other examples earlier, which I've used, right? So I can quickly show that as well.
See,
There's a server.
I would add one more point is suppose if we have .NET Framework web app, which is full framework, not .NET 5 or .NET 3.1 core. So in that case, I think we don't have any other choice. We have to use the Windows hosted agent. Now that we are
Yeah.
using cross-platform .NET, we have a choice whether to use Windows
Correct.
or
Correct.
Ubuntu
Correct.
hosted agents.
Yeah, but I think if when you flash both of those questions, right? My understanding is, can't we do both of them in a single job only, so that we don't have to spin up another Ubuntu machine? That is very much
Okay.
possible. That is what I am showing. I am showing as an example here, right? See here, there's only one job which is called build, right? Or these are the steps. I'm doing .NET publish, and I'm immediately doing a .NET deployment as well into the web app here, right?
Okay, add all the tasks within the same
Build job, right?
action. Okay.
Correct. But that means in this only you are doing both build and deployment, right? If you want to split both of them, I mean, this would work only if to your dev environment. At the moment you want to go into test, or if you want to get into controlled environments like a pre-prod and production, you can't do like this, right? That's when you would
Exactly.
need to decouple them into two different jobs, and then you can add the dependencies and then work through it, right? That's one way.
Agreed.
And that's the configurable same build job for deploying to Azure. Okay, and then last choice on Azure Web App runs. Yeah, that is up to us until there is no hard and fast rule, right? So you can use either Windows or Linux. Since it's a .NET Core and .NET 5, you don't need to really go with Windows, right? Like I said, Linux works out much cheaper as well. That's the reason I chose Linux here. There are no other specific reasons. And sir, can we do version-based or branches build and rollback build during issues like in Jenkins? So branch-based build, yes, very much possible. So if I can go back here, right again, I'll go here. See, we have put the branches as master here, right? Any push to master only. Let's say if and also we've told push to this particular branch as pull request to any of this master branch, right? If you create any other branch like a feature slash whatever branch and then push to that branch, this build will not run because we have not added that into this push, right? So what you typically do is master comma feature slash star or whatever you would specify, so that it will honor all of your feature branches. So definitely branch based builds are very much possible here as well. And the second part of the question is on rollback build during issues like Jenkins. So yeah, okay, rollback is a good question, right? So how now whatever we've seen is all like automated, correct? We've not seen any kind of manual intervention on how we can create or stop or do any specific activities, right? So there is a way to do it manually as well. So for example, if I can go here and edit this, there's something called workflow dispatch. Okay, so you need to add that so that it would enable your manual runs. Right? Workflow dispatch. Yeah, so what this does is this would enable, we can go ahead and trigger the build manually. So until now, if you go to the actions window, you can only rerun the workflows, right? Maybe if you go here, it will okay, not even rerun here. Where is that rerun? Okay, it's not even allowing me to rerun. It should allow to rerun. View workflow file, view run one. Let me see, it is there somewhere. I saw. Okay, it's not showing up here. Yeah, basically, yeah, you can't manually trigger anything from here, right? As you can see, if you want to enable manual run, that is where you will use this workflow dispatch. Close this. Go here, and I'm enabling this workflow dispatch here, right? And then I'll say start commit, update this one. So now, if you go to the actions, and build and deploy, it should say, see, this workflow has a workflow dispatch event trigger. Right? That means you would have options to start triggering them manually, right? Let's say if you want to do any kind of rollbacks, and when you enable workflow dispatch, you can also pass different inputs to this. For example, if you are doing a deployment based on your image version, in the case of Dockerized world, right? Let's say 1.0.2 is what you've pushed it now, and then you found there is an issue in 1.0.2, so you want to deploy only one, you want to roll back into 1.0.1. Right? In such case, you can provide that as your as a version number, or the tag number could be your input to this particular workflow dispatch, and then you can run that workflow so that it will go ahead and do the deployment, right? So it's all about what are the things we want to club in a single workflow versus how we want to do things in parallel or in multiples, right? So I think this is a good example of why we want to split your build and deployment separately, right? The build would focus only on generating the artifacts, right? And then you can have different workflows to create or do your deployments, so that you can plan all these, rollbacks, and then the moving to different environments and other things in an easier way. Yeah. And invoking custom script, yes, of course, very much possible. You can directly, if you go to action starter, right? If you go to GitHub Actions, all they show is they will show how to write the custom scripts and everything else here. At echo, you can directly say a run echo statement, right? That is how a basic action would be. Creating actions, not creating actions. Where is quick start understanding? Customizing actions. I'm just trying to see if I can show some of the examples here. Okay, build and test. No, this would give you good examples around how to build and test. Creating templates. Let's see if this has any any samples here. See, you can use something like this run. If you want to directly run a specific commands, inline commands, you can use run directly. Or if you have any files, let's say you have your partial scripts, or if you have your shell scripts, or any kind of scripts, if you committed into your repository, then if you want to execute them, you can also do them as well.
Something we used to do, check into our ADO, and from the pipeline we give the path, and we execute that script.
Correct. Yes, the same thing we can do here as well.
Same thing we can do here. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Looks like I'm a very old man. You are in the latest trend, GitHub workflow. I'm always correlating myself with Azure DevOps.
I mean, it's good. A lot of us see, though I kind of I talk about GitHub Actions now. Back in my work, we are still using DevOps, Azure DevOps only, and then we're trying to move towards GitHub Actions. These things are pretty new, and then it's still evolving, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's so using Azure DevOps doesn't make you very old, Vishwanath. So don't worry.
I know. See, I'm also having
there are quite a few things. If you ask me, still there are improvements needed here. But recently, if you look at Azure DevOps, there's something called templates, right? You can create your own pipeline templates, which can be reused in different other pipelines. So that just came in recently, if I'm not wrong. It's called what is the name of it? Not workflow template. I think composite actions. Yeah, it's called composite actions. That means you can let's say if you're working on microservices architecture, right? What you typically do, you would run all these build, unit test, code coverage, static analysis, code analysis, and then static security analysis, everything, right? All these steps need to be run for each and every microservice what you create, right? You don't have to replicate all of these set of steps in each and every workflow file. You can create a composite action, and then you just keep including that action in each of these files and change the parameters as you need. Right? So that way, it will be a lot of reusability of these actions as well. That's what the composite action is for.
I have seen a master YAML template.
Correct,
so that master has got a base set of steps, and that they include in these other templates like project 1, project 2, project 3.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
The base one, I've seen that.
Correct. Yeah. The equivalent of it is a composite action here, where you can you can create multiple actions together, and then you can create them.
Right.
I always wonder why databases don't get the same CI/CD love as applications. That's a tricky question. But yeah, that's a good comment, Prasad. Yeah. He also says he is GitLab, is YAML supported there, or what options do we have? I think GitLabs also have GitLab's pipelines. Right? That's also an YAML-based pipelines, if I'm not wrong, though I have not worked directly with GitLab. But yes, it does have an pipeline as a code support, right? You can, like what you have as an workflow YAML here, you'll also have another YAML file there with which you can specify all the actions, what you want to do. It's not called actions, sorry, all the tasks, what you want to accomplish. Okay. Any other questions?
There
I
are
think it
no
took a lot of time.
there are no other question, but Senthil, Amresh, and Prasad, these three people were major
Okay.
contributors in the queries, but it was real. I mean, you had one feeling that you didn't have the interactive session, but these three people made it interactive.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. GitLab CI and GitHub
And GitHub
Actions are
Actions
pretty
pretty much.
same.
Yeah, see, it's
Okay.
all about the ecosystem, right? If you're already on
Sure.
GitLab, right, you don't have to really move into GitHub Actions also, right?
Mm.
If you are on GitHub, if your enterprise or anyone is using GitHub as your source control, then everything is in one-stop shop, right? You go to GitHub and then you get Actions. You also have GitHub packages available here, in which you can also push all your as an artifactor. You can use GitHub packages, and then you can also use GitHub Container Registry if you are using Dockerized models, right? You can also push your Docker images to GitHub Container Registry, etc. Everything becomes in a single place for you.
Oh, they are hosting a registry also of
Yes,
images?
yes,
GitHub?
yes. There is
Ah,
GitHub Container Registry.
like Azure Container Registry.
Yes, GHCR. It's called GHCR. So you will
Ah,
have the name as GHCR dot whatever the things, right? Yeah. See, this
so
is where it's
if
all available.
I need to look, okay.
Yeah.
GitHub package.
GitHub packages is available. See, as part of GitHub packages, you can have all of these registries, right? NuGet registry, container registry, Docker
Mm-hmm.
registry, NPM registry. Everything is Apache
Cool.
Maven registry. Everything you can set up.
Mm.
So all
I
of
need
this
to
will
look into
become
that.
part of your GitHub itself, right? If it's GitLabs,
Mm.
yeah, it's all about the tooling and the choice what individual organizations have primarily, right? But pretty much from the feature point of view, if you ask me, yeah, all of these are on the same lines, right? Unless at least I have not gone too deep into to research at that level of what is really different yet. But yeah, maybe when I encounter something, yeah, I'll definitely write a blog around that also, right?
Cool.
But it's about the ecosystem is what I would say, right? How do you want to get your end-to-end things running, right? Let's say if you use GitHub issues or GitHub project management, then you don't have to worry about multiple tools, right? Everything is on GitHub, right? And there are a lot of these free offerings that are available in GitHub Actions, especially for open source applications and things like that, right? And the pricing wise, if you want to look at it, yeah, you can also look at the pricing page here, and then you'll get to know what are the pricing for the GitHub Actions here, and you can also do a comparison on how the GitHub Actions are priced versus GitLab CI or even Azure DevOps or anything else for that matter. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Cool.
Amrish also
Cool.
pointed out it's all down to ecosystem and compatibility. Yes.
Cool.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those nice compliments, Prasad. That's really motivating us to do more. Thank you. Thank you for joining again and again.
Yeah. Really it helps. I mean, for us to plan the
Yes.
next month event. So we are doing the local event of
.NET Conf mostly. Yeah.
mostly .NET Conf, isn't it? Yeah. So that
Yes.
will be
Yes.
the combined from
Mhm.
both B.NET and .NET
Yeah.
Learners House. There will be one event which
Yeah.
both these meetup groups we are planning.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
just another leaving thoughts, not about the events. If you want to know more about this GitHub Actions or the self-hosted runners or on how to deploy into AKS, I've already made some YouTube videos and then it's there on my channel. So you can go to youtube.com/Swamnath and then see those as well, right? I didn't show the container part now because of the lack of time. Yeah, if you need another interactive session, I'm happy to do that as well. Or you can also go ahead and check out on the YouTube as well. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
And
if
let me know
people,
if there are any questions. Yeah.
yeah, that sounds good. I mean, seeing this, I'm thinking, I mean, we can do something like a 2 or 3 hours workshop to do everything in front of their eyes. Like we have the
Yeah.
repository or the code ready.
Mhm.
Whatever the thing which we have shown in the architectural thing, Swami,
Yeah.
a couple of months ago, we can
Yeah.
take that entire solution and start
Yes.
building, like including infrastructure as a code, like deploying maybe the Terraform or ARM templates. We
Mhm.
can do that in
Yeah.
December. We can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see that.
We'll
Yeah,
plan. Yeah.
we'll plan. Yeah, please post your
Absolutely.
comments if you would like to see that a workshop kind of event, which we
Mhm.
both Swami and Swami can take a 2 to 3 hours. Even if one Swami
Session.
does a mistake, other Swami can cover it.
When we're
So we
all
can
devs, right? Mistakes do happen. It's okay. That's how
mistakes
we learn.
to happen.
So
Yeah. We can do
It's
that
fine.
2 to 3 hours event, Swaminathan. That's what I'm thinking. It might be pretty good to do that.
Yes.
We'll plan something.
Yeah. I'm always
Perfect.
in. Yeah, let's understand what's really needed so that it's all useful for
Exactly.
everyone also, right? Yeah, we don't want to
Everyone.
just dump what we know. So we can also learn from them around what are the things people are looking for, and then we can definitely deliver content accordingly.
Yeah, I'm speaking since 7 8 years, but every time I come to the sessions, I'll always be scared because the comments, when
Yes,
I see the comments is that they know a lot of things which I don't know.
of course. Yeah, I mean
So
the
seriously,
kind of industry what we are in, nobody can master anything, right?
nobody can master
It's
anything. Yeah,
a learning is a journey for us. We have to learn
it's a
every day,
learn
and then
every day.
keep learning from each other. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when I started flashing out my first slide, which says that I'm a learner. Apologize if I do any
Yeah.
mistake. That's
Yeah.
the first slide. I flash it and then I'll start my session.
I think I'm getting time out. My daughter is
I know I've seen
giving me a
that.
signal.
Now, this is like a gentle reminder.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Before it can
Yeah,
go, before she'll take an
correct.
action on you.
Yeah. All right
Cool.
then. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
everybody, for staying till the end. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in another event. Yeah.
Yeah, my younger one is
All right.
sleeping. That's the reason. The moment he wakes up, he'll not give a gentle reminders. It's like an action only, direct. Github Actions. Bye, folks. Thank you so much for joining, Swaminathan. It was really wonderful session, and I've learned pretty much. Seriously, I've learned, and now I will implement. Thanks so
Cool.
much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think you all have my social handles. Yeah, please feel free to post any questions if you have either on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever, right? Also on YouTube as well. I'll try to
sure,
respond. Thank
sure.
you. Thanks for
Thank you so
organizing this,
much,
Swami.
folks.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for
Have a good
joining.
weekend, guys.
Same to
Yeah.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye.